Bismillah, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. I just like to get my vibe in for a little minute, guys. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Nasir.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Guys, let us know how our sound is, please. It might be off. It might not be. Wow, mashallah, we've got Saudi Arabia in the house, mashallah. We've got Guinea, Conakry. I've been there before, mashallah. We've got Ghana in the house as well. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum, guys. How are you all doing tonight? Let us know in the chat how you are doing, whether it's been a good week, and whether you were here live last week or last night, or if this is your first time. Let us know in the chat. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up as you come in. Brother Nasir, how has your week been?
Alhamdulillah, very good, productive, just like I like it. Alhamdulillah. And yours?
Yes, good, mashallah. Talk to us about the integrity gap. Notice this has been a theme this week, this integrity and the integrity gap. What's all that about?
Yeah, before we're going to get there, though, we have to start first with you. How was your show last night?
It was brilliant, mashallah. Yeah, it was brilliant.
You Brits and you're brilliant. Okay.
Brilliant is brilliant.
It is. It is. Talk to me. How was it?
It was really, really good. We had a wide variety of guests come on, mashallah. People's brothers, sisters, people speaking from a mother's perspective, from a son's perspective, from a husband's perspective. It was really good. And guys, if you weren't there last night, then basically on Wednesday nights, I come on live. We have a live call-in show, and there's a topic that we address each week. Last night, it was mothers raising men. And we were just looking at some of the pitfalls that mothers can fall into when they're bringing up boys and bringing up their sons, and the impact that can have, and how to avoid making those types of mistakes. And really what I loved about yesterday's conversation was just how open everybody is when they come on, how respectfully everybody interacts with everyone else. People really share a lot of good stuff, mashallah, and we really were able to unearth a lot of important points. And alhamdulillah, so far the comments for people who've watched the replay have shown that people benefited, mashallah. So alhamdulillah, yeah, it was good.
Mashallah, mashallah. How did the sisters take it? Because I'm interested in if they were open to that perspective, right? That they can't do it all.
That wasn't really the tone, actually, at all. No, we weren't talking about that. It was actually based on a post that a man had written when he was talking to men. It's actually addressed to men mainly, talking about how as a man, some men have not had the opportunity to separate truly from their mothers, because some mothers basically smother their sons, right? Especially single mothers or mothers who are in unhappy marriages. So that kind of segued into whole son husbands and mama's boys and that kind of thing. But that they tend to not allow their sons to break away, right? And he was just saying how that breaking away is a fundamental part of your formation as a young man. And if you never had the opportunity to do that, it will show up in your marriage in this way, and that way. So it was more about looking at the codependency that can be found in relationships between the mothers and the sons. There was a brother, mashallah, who came on from a husband's perspective. He also came on like from a father and a stepfather perspective. And we were talking about how difficult it can be dealing with teenage boys when you're a woman on your own, and what teenage boys need. And it was really good, mashallah. It was really, really good, really insightful, thoughtful, and a lot of good stuff was shared, mashallah. The chat was amazing. Like everybody in the chat was so connected and so, really paying attention and making good points in the chat. I think part of what makes these lives amazing is the contribution from the comments, contribution from the chat. So I love it. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. No, that's a needed topic. That's definitely a needed topic and something that needs to be addressed. I know for me, I was raised by a single mother, and I greatly benefited from the men that came in to my life at different points in time. Um, I was blessed that uh, various men, they may not have stayed long, right? It may have been, for example, it was a high school teacher, English teacher. For one point, it was a college professor, right? Uh, or a police officer at one point in time. So these men came in and uh, they served their purpose. They gave me a bit of guidance, a jewel that I needed at that moment to correct and avoid maybe certain pitfalls. And then they left, right? So I got what I needed from them. But I was very much blessed with that because my father fortunately taught me everything not to do, and dealing with the emotions that are connected with seeing modeled for you what not to do. um, I think for me it allowed me to be receptive to men that came in and showed me an alternative, right? And plus making the mistakes on my own, right? So making a number of mistakes in life early at life. And I think that's one of the things of not having a father figure in your life. You fall early. And so you learn early that the stove is hot, right? And so you can keep touching it, but it's going to be hot. It's going to be painful. So I think by the time I hit my teenage years, I was receptive to alternative views, alternative perspectives, because I had had enough years of realizing the pain of touching the stove, right? And I think that's why later on in life, when I learned about CBT, I was very much receptive to it because at the core of CBT, and for those listening, cognitive behavior therapy is CBT. At the core of CBT is this premise that we all have a hypothesis, right? When an event happens, and it's up for us to test out that hypothesis, i.e., to test out our thinking. And so, what my younger years had taught me was my initial perception when something happens, my knee jerk reaction, my habitual thinking, and that of my peers may not be optimal. It may not be best. It may not be helpful. And so, then when I found CBT, it was learning a systematic way to challenge my initial thinking, right? So I fell in love with the model initially because I had had the history, the years of learning that my way isn't always the best way. It is now because it's the male's perspective, which is always the right perspective. But I learned early, though, that
you guys can click off now if you like.
No, that's gonna bring them all in, all the masculinas. Come on, man. I'm bringing that. I'm trying to get that masculina energy in here, liven up the chat, spicing it up. So what I learned early though is my initial thoughts, what come to my mind, right? The perception that I have, and then the evaluation I make, isn't necessarily optimal. It's not helpful, not always. Um, And so, with that being said, I found a model that gave me a formula, a systematic way to challenge myself, right? And so, I think that is one of the reasons why I fell in love with the model. But one of the reasons why um, I think I would like to think I've helped people with the model is because I've seen it in my own life, right? It was born out of not having a father. Right? Right. And so at an early age, learning that I needed to think about my thinking. And when you study CBT, that's a recurring mantra that you'll hear, right? Is think about your thinking. Right? And I tell clients all the time, when you experience an intense emotion, that's a red flag for you to think about your thinking. So whenever you have a uncomfortable emotion or You find yourself, you woken up and you're not ready to get out of bed, and it's 15 minutes past, 30 minutes past. You know you're going to be late for work or wherever you need to be, but you still can't seem to get up and get out of bed. You know you're borderline sad, depressed. Then those are all experiences and emotions for you to think about. You're thinking, what are you telling yourself about yourself or about others or about life conditions? And oftentimes, and this is something you and I have talked about, oftentimes it's also, what are you saying about your Lord? Right? That conversation that you're having about how your Lord must view you, right? In order to create these conditions for you. So yeah, single coming. So for those parents, for those mothers that are raising raising a son, it's possible. It's possible, except that you're not going to be perfect at it. It's going to be challenges, but your sons can learn from that. Right? At least that was my perspective. That was my experience. But I will also acknowledge I lost a lot of friends in the process who were also raised by single mothers, and they had more challenging existence, and there are more challenging consequences to some of the choices that they made in life, and are still making in life.
Yeah, it was actually interesting because one of the things that came out of our discussion yesterday was that one of the pitfalls of being raised by a mother on her own without any men around is that her instinct is to not allow you to learn those lessons. Her instinct for many is to protect you from the lessons, right? Is to cushion your fall, is to make excuses, is to protect you and to coddle you, which is why we ended up having a conversation about, boys who grow up feminized or who grow up weak, basically, because their mother's instinct is to keep them safe. Their mother's instinct is to not allow them to face consequences. She doesn't want to see them sad. She doesn't want to see them unhappy. It feels bad to her to make him take the blame, take consequences like a father would, right? Because a father's going to tell you, suck it up. Most moms don't say that. Most moms will be like, you don't want to do it right now? Okay, let's see if we can, you know what I mean? And there's a negotiation, and then there's like how can I make this okay? That's the mother's imperative. How can I make this okay for my child? Fathers don't do that, I think, in general, because most fathers say that that's not what he needs. He needs to feel it. He needs to know it. He needs to see it. He needs to do the thing, basically, as a young man, as a future man. He needs to be he needs to be tough, basically. He needs to gain the competency, to gain the strength that he will need later on in life, right? So, yeah, African moms do. True, Bint Jamil, you're right. African moms don't play. Sorry. None of these apply to African moms.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was in my mind, I was saying my mother was the exception.
And maybe African American moms as well. Yeah, maybe African American moms too. I think there's something there.
With the recurring voice in my head, and I would always hear from my mother, look, don't do anything to go to jail because you're going to stay there. Which means there are consequences to the choices you make in life. And so don't make choices that you're not willing to handle the consequences that come with it.
Do you think she would have left you in jail if you had?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Because, and this is another piece that I'm not sure if you guys talked about, is how do mothers handle the breaking of the marriage, the loss of the love for the husband, and then how that is handled emotionally and what that looks like in the relationship to the son.
Yeah, right? we talked about in the case of yesterday, we talked about women who are either have the relationship has broken down or it's dysfunctional, and her turning her attention to her son the love, the devotion, the care, the comfort, the adoration is channeled towards her perfect little man, her golden boy, which again is in contrast to the example I think that you can bring, which is that for some single mothers, you're not the golden boy, you are like your father, or you're going to be like your father. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. It's really interesting how different people navigate that, because on the one hand you have those who are like, you know, this is my perfect son and he's the only good one out of all these men. And then for other mothers, it's like, no, you're just a man like the rest of them, unless I can do something about that.
Yeah, and or there's nothing I can do about it. You're just going to be like your father.
Okay.
Right. So the continuum is there, right? And so with that being said, how does a young man? And so this is why it's important, and this speaks to the conversation we had before about previous generations. And you know, I was saying previous generations did not have the emotional understanding and ability to regulate. They more had they had cultural pressures that kept them in a certain box versus the emotional regulation, and that's what was demonstrated to our generation. And so that's another piece with this. You know, one is where's the emotional regulation in terms of the type of man that you chose to marry? That's one. And then two, when that relationship is experiencing discomfort or disturbance, how do you handle that in terms of emotional regulation? And then when it actually doesn't work out and there's a divorce, emotional regulation is also needed at that point as well, right? So this concept of learning how to regulate your emotions is essential, because whatever phase your marriage or relationship is in, even once it's over, and then your relationship with your children, yourself and your children, emotional regulation is critical. And you know, I can say this because my mother, I think, would agree as well. I know she would, is that emotional regulation, as we understand it now, as people who understand models and have studied models, and it's the thing to do, right? She didn't have that, right? And nor did I, right? And so you have two people trying to figure out, you know, and navigate the reality of, I look just like my father. I have tendencies like my father. And so how does a woman deal with that, right? When the relationship is over, the marriage is over. Right? So yeah, it's a deep conversation. It's a needed conversation. But again, I think the critical piece with it, and this probably is my bias, is emotional regulation is essential. If you don't have it, it's going to show itself in your life. And or it's going to show itself in the lives of your children.
Both. and I think we can agree. And subhanAllah. So guys, if you missed that yesterday, it's on the channel. It's the Wednesday night live stream. I think it's called Mothers Raising Men, An Impossible Feat, something like this. So please do go ahead and watch that. Give us your thoughts in the comments. And today, our candid conversation is a response, I guess, or a discussion of something that we want to share with you guys. I think this was a post or a DM. And inshallah, when you guys hear it, you'll see kind of where we're going with this. But we are opening the call lines. So you guys will be able to join the show and, you know, jump in and share your thoughts, inshallah. I love it when we do that. It's so much fun, mashallah. So I'm going to put that in the chat and you guys will be able to join after we have kind of chopped it up for a little bit. So would you like to read or should I read?
If you can, if you don't mind, it's a woman's perspective, so they can hear it in a woman's voice. So you can, you know, add the ad libs and the tone and all of that. You know, you can.
As long as we don't have to hear the male perspective, which is the right perspective, again, for the rest of today's show, that's cool with me.
Yeah, you will.
Right. So, Sis says, if a husband needs to request his wife to remain physically fit, then I want all the bills paid. I want to be a stay-at-home mom, wife, and homeschooling mother. I want a gym membership. For your information, women-only gym memberships are expensive. Organic food, a monthly allowance for my hair, waxing, eyebrow threading, nails, and a seasonal budget for new clothes. Of course, to maintain this fitness level, I need him to watch our kids so I can meal prep and do those 100 plus crunches to keep my stomach flat. He also must keep a 6-figure income and never develop a dad bod. So those are her demands. And that is what she wants to see happen if a husband, and let's remember what the initial statement was, if a husband requests his wife to remain physically fit, these are the conditions, people. Okay, so if, brothers, you're on notice, if you require your wife to be physically fit, then you have to pay all the bills. You have to earn 6 figures. Your wife has to be a stay-at-home mom. She has to have a female-only gym membership. You have to be buying organic food. You have to be providing a monthly allowance for hair, waxing, eyebrow threading, nails, and new clothes. And you have to watch the kids so that she can meal prep. And you have to not develop a dad bod. Those are the conditions if you want your wife to stay fit. What say you?
So one, I want to give you credit because I think you really you hit the masculine energy on that with the ad libs and
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think you did. Yeah, salute to you. The first thing that comes to mind is, and this is your fault because I don't think you talk about this enough, and you need to. My perspective is the denial of the wall. I think I'm about to. I think the denial of the wall is real, and I think it permeates through these expectations, i.e., these demands. I think sisters deny the fact that they lose leverage. They lose leverage as they age. And men do as well, but our wall is much later in life. And I think it's important for sisters to understand that you don't have the leverage in your 30s that you had in your early 20s and late 20s. So it's important that your expectations for your husband be tempered by that. Now, there's a number of ways in which we can go by this, I think, also in terms of your own health and also remaining attractive to your husband. But I think one of the critical things that women must understand is the wall is real. Denying it doesn't make it not real. It is real. You will hit it. And if you just want, and this is going to be uncomfortable, if you want just a clear example of it is, look at some of your old pictures from 5-10 years ago. Look at the attention you were getting from 5 or 10 years ago. And this also brings up another important point. Sisters, I know this may be uncomfortable, but it's what you need to hear. There's a difference between the attention you get from a man because he wants to provide for you, take care of you, versus a man that just wants comfort. Keep that in mind when you're on those apps. You can get a lot of men that swipe on you and click on your profile because they're interested in comfort. It's not because they're interested in commitment. And that leverage you have for commitment, it wanes, especially when you get into your late 20s and 30s. What do you think? Sister Rukeya, while it's true, when I look at my pics, I've changed. Thank you for being honest, sis. Thank you for being honest. And again, sis, just a quick point with that, just so that, sisters understand that I'm being balanced with this. Look, your wall may be late 20s, early 30s. And it can be the same thing for brothers. But the reality is you guys want resources. You want provision. Our provision, our ability to provide increases if we're doing what we need to be doing. And that's the type of man you should be looking for we're doing what we need to be doing, our money just increases. Late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, it increases. So as long as we're still making money and taking care of ourselves, eating well, exercising, which we should be doing as men, that's another conversation, then our wall is much later. Men typically marry women first and foremost, and I know the religious police are going to get me for this. Yes, religion is important, but men look for beauty. Many men look for attractiveness. Hence, get in the gym. I'm done.
For me, I didn't even think about the wall because I have no idea how old this sister is. My issue is the entitlement. My issue is the entitlement. It is the attitude. It's the vibe, right? It's the sassy, well, if you're going to want that, then I'm going to need boom, 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 right? Not to mention the fact that the thing that is being requested is literally to remain physically fit. So what you're saying is that unless your husband is operating at the top of his game, she said 6 figures, guys. She said 6 figures. And she said he can't have a dad bod either. And he has to keep her at home in organic food with all the bills paid, including her own kind of upkeep, etc., right? And mind the kids and watch the kids, right? So basically, he has to do everything that he possibly could be doing if he expects her to be physically fit. And my thing is it that hard, sis? Is it that hard to stay fit? Is it that much of a burden? Is it that much of an expectation that you get to demand this huge list in return for what? Being physically fit? Come on now. Come on, man. Come on, man. Don't bring us that. This is some nonsense beat, right? So exactly. This sister, it says, some of these conditions are hilarious. I mean, the sister was probably joking and she was exaggerating, but it's the attitude. It's the attitude that men shouldn't have standards. My husband shouldn't have any expectations of me. And if he does have an expectation, he better be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all of the things. And that attitude of entitlement, guys, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, sisters, this is across the board for Muslims anyway, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala invites us to be humble, right? And to walk on the earth with humility. However, as a woman and as a potential wife, or even a wife, because there are wives who have this same energy, right? As a wife, a sense of entitlement gets you nowhere. In fact, a sense of entitlement and this attitude that he better be this and he better be that, and if he wants this, he better X, Y, and Z, this pushes your husband away because it is coming from a place of arrogance and pride and ingratitude. The joke in this post aside, the audacity to say that my husband having this one request of me, and it didn't even say be a size something. It didn't even say not put, it just said be physically fit. That you have the audacity, that if your husband makes this type of request or he has that standard, and he has that as, something that he requires, that you have the audacity to say, oh, really? It's like that? Okay, then, well, you better be coming with all of the things. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable completely. And it speaks to, again, this idea that we've spoken about where modern women are told that they are the prize and that they are pretty much perfect, right? And that any man who is with them is blessed, is lucky, is fortunate. He better be grateful that I even give him the time of day. He better be grateful that I even this, that I even that, and I even this. And unfortunately, I think the reason why a lot of the traditional advice, and especially the traditional Islamic advice, the reason why it rubs sisters up the wrong way And I'm going to be blatantly and brutally honest with you guys. The reason why we don't like to hear about the rights of the husband is because in the deen, it makes it very clear which side your bread is buttered. It makes it very clear. And the way your bread is buttered is not what society tells you. Society is out here telling us that men run after us, that men's job is to please us, that we are the prize, that we are on the pedestal, that we are the beautiful, perfect thing, and men are just trying to figure it out, right? And that basically our needs come first. That's what society is telling us, right? That's what they show in the films. That's what the music is based on. That's what we are being taught by the environment around us. Unfortunately for us, the deen makes it very clear the hierarchy within the relationship. And like I said, whose bread is buttered and where. And that is why a lot of that advice, it stings and it sticks in the throat. What do you mean I need to treat him like a king? Why? What's so great about him? You know what I'm saying? What do you mean that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told anyone to prostrate in front of anyone else in this dunya, it would be the wife to her husband? What do you mean? Why? What's so great about him? He's just doing his job. You see that attitude there? If you do feel that, sis, and I felt it before, if we're feeling that, it's because we've drunk the Kool-Aid of this modern society and we're uncomfortable with the idea that our husband has such a high ranking in our lives and that their pleasure with us and their approval of us has as much weight with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's big, man. That's big. And that's what nobody really wants to say. Sisters want to carry on like we're equals or we're the same. Well, yeah, I have to respect him, but he has to respect me. Oh, yeah, I have to obey him, but he also has to listen to me. You know, there's all of that kind of thing. Okay, yeah, okay, I cook the food, but he has to do it. This is where this post, for me, that's the energy that it's coming with. It's conditional. It's conditional obedience. It's conditional pleasing of the husband. It's conditional prioritizing of the husband's needs. And in this example, obviously, it's completely, out of whack. But sisters, if we're doing that, we need to check ourselves, because I fear that our attitude to our husbands will make us of the women mentioned in the hadith who take up the majority of the hellfire because of being ungrateful. Nobody wants to hear the hadith, right? Nobody really wants to talk about that hadith. Nobody really wants to mention it because, again, it's another one of those that makes it so uncomfortable because we're used to seeing ourselves in a certain way. And Allah and His Messenger are saying, ihdi shwaya. Just like come back down to earth, recognize what this man is and the place that he has in your life and the place he should have in your life and in your priorities. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to check that. Rant over.
Yeah, I think let's look at the comments. So we should save it for ourselves, exactly, for our own self-esteem. It makes you feel good. Just a side note. I understand where the sister was going with this, but just a side note, it's a point to bring up because I deal with emotional regulation. I want you all to be mindful of self-esteem, because self-esteem from the modality that I use is a trap. And the reason why I say it's a trap is because typically self-esteem is viewed and practiced in a way that is conditioned based. I venerate myself. I feel good about myself when I meet this condition, right? So when I go to the gym, I feel good about myself. When I miss going to the gym, I don't feel good about myself. So that attaches them, i.e., your self-esteem, your self-worth is attached to conditions, what you do. So whenever you're doing well, you're venerating yourself, you feel good. The problem is, if you're going to follow that logic, when you're not doing well, you're going to bring yourself down as well. So it's best to separate your worth, your value over here, right? And it's not something that you rate or label. And then over here is what you do. It's skill sets. So for a sister that is overweight, that needs to get in shape, it may be a thinking issue, not necessarily what you're consuming issue. It may be a time management issue, not so much what you're consuming, and or all three, right? But those are all skill sets. You can learn how to question and challenge your thinking. You can learn how to get better time management, right? But none of those skill sets need to be attached to your worth. Because again, when they're attached, whenever you're doing well, you're going to bring yourself up. Whenever you're doing down in terms of not meeting your own standard or societal or communal or parental expectations, you're going to bring yourself down. So always keep those separate and just look at what are the skill sets I need to obtain and or enhance to get the outcomes that I want. And that has nothing to do with your worth, right? Remember, worth is something separate. Your value in the Muslim marriage market is something else. Your value at your profession is something else. It's not attached to your worth. So you can perform poorly on the job interview, but still be a good person, still be worthy, right? You can go through a divorce and still be a worthy person. You just have skill sets in terms of the divorce that you need to enhance. So just a note about self-esteem to keep in mind.
I chose violence. I don't want peace. I don't want to hear about that self-esteem nonsense. Okay. No, I'm kidding. But for real, like, I hear where you're coming from and I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being the honey in the situation. As for me, I don't want peace, right? This particular post that we looked at, you know, it is this.
So a couple of things.
It's entitlement for me.
Yeah, and so apologies, I missed the comments, and if we can go back to them right quick. But just one thing, because you don't know this, but I know this. So the sister that made the post, this is unfortunately at that particular time a consistent kind of theme and mantra from her post. And unfortunately, the sister is 40.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And so
oh,
you know, the thing about it is, this is why I think for me, the natural or the first response that came to my mind was, sis, you didn't hit the wall. You can't talk slick like that. You don't have that type of leverage.
The leverage. But the thing is, can I just say though, if it was a 20-year-old with this type of mouth, you better move away from, I'm sorry to say, guys, I'm going to go into mother mode here. You better stay away from my son. Don't come here with that stink attitude. I don't care whether you're 20 and gorgeous and 40 and past the wall. I don't care. The attitude itself, this one here, is not acceptable as far as I'm concerned. And any man who entertains this type of energy, he deserves everything he gets. Because this is this here. Wait a second. Can I just say this here? If a man says yes to this, simp lord, hashtag simp lord. That's it. You've created a monster in this woman, and you're going to be on the treadmill trying to live up to her demands and fulfill her needs and basically tick off all the boxes on her list for the rest of your life, and you're gonna get what you deserve. That's what I say.
So I hear you. Caveat with that is, an older man with resources may know how to test that more than a younger man would. And for him,
because look, some men love drama.
So this is what I mean. And this is where the leverage comes in. Because she has what some older men want, which is youth and beauty. So he may have a conversation or two with her to see, is this really what she believes? Or is this just her regurgitating what she's constantly heard? Young and naive, she doesn't know. a man with resources and experience will know how the gift of gab. He'll know how to have a conversation or two and see and decipher that. But he will allocate some time and energy to figuring that out because of the exchange for youth and beauty.
Sure. You'll give her the time. He'll make the time to see, is it really as bad as all that? He'll give her a chance to prove, is it really like that? Whereas,
but you 40, 35 plus, I ain't doing that. You know what I mean? Because you can't exchange what he needs, right? You don't have it. And that's, that's the wall. And hence that's why it came to my mind, is because if you didn't hit the wall, you don't have that leverage. And I think this is a new concept for Muslim women. I think it's definitely a huge new concept. No?
I disagree. And you know why? Previous generations knew exactly what the wall was and what it looked like.
Agreed.
You got your aunties. Guys, put it in the chat. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The aunties, the grandmother. When are you going to find someone? Aren't you getting old? When are we going to see some grandbabies? It really, I would say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, people would have been on your case to say, why are you not married yet, right? They knew that there is a window and that there is an optimal time. And it's like at a certain time, we just lost that. And everybody's like, study, get your master's, have your career, and then you'll find someone. It's okay. You still have time. You're 35. You still have time. You know what I'm saying? That's new. That was never the case. Like, I want to say even 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't the case. That's a very new thing. And of course, the wall smacks. It hits hard. You know what I'm saying? So now the women who were told you've got time have hit the wall. And that's why they realize that, so those old-fashioned aunties that we thought were toxic, that we thought were just trying to make us feel bad about ourselves and trying to make us ashamed, they actually knew what they were talking about. SubhanAllah.
And that's kind of what I'm alluding to. That acceptance is new. I think that acceptance is now is happening, whereas before it didn't. And I think before it was societal pressure, cultural pressure, that you adhered to the wall without really understanding, right, what the wall was. Now I think sisters are learning what the wall is and accepting that reality. But unfortunately, a lot of them, they've passed it. I saw a comment. A sister says, "What does age got to do with it?"
I don't know whether it's a joking comment, a sarcastic comment, or is it actually a genuine question. Sis, let us know in the chat if this is a genuine question. If it is, more than happy to explain and break that down. Because seriously, I remember when I first had a conversation and I mentioned for the first time publicly this issue of being older in the marriage market, right? Being older, being divorced, maybe sisters who put on weight, etc., right? And I was accused of being ageist, ableist, and I was called a misogynist, right?
Ooh, got it all.
I got the exact. I got the three, bingo. Ageist, ableist, misogynist, fatphobic was another one. So I got 4 actually, right? And so there are some people who have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid and genuinely do not think that age is anything but a number when it comes to marriage, and that it should not make a difference how old you are, how you look, your weight, your health, your marriage status, whether you have kids or not. They genuinely believe that in a perfect world, it is possible for none of these things to matter, that they shouldn't matter. And a good man, a real man, will not allow any of those factors to influence his decision. That is the story they're telling themselves. That's the story out there. So if it's a genuine question, let's answer it. Because there are people who genuinely feel like, why are you guys talking about 35-year-olds? What's wrong with being 35 and wanting to get married? What's wrong with being a bit overweight, or very overweight for that matter? Some men like big women. Do you know what I'm saying? So there is definitely a case of people genuinely confused. Like, what are you guys on about? Like, since when was this a thing?
The sister is saying it's a real
genuine question. Yeah.
Genuine question. She really wants to know.
Yeah.
Do you want me or you?
Oh, yeah, no, you go ahead.
So, sister, the reality is this: in the Muslim marriage market, what men are looking for initially is youth and beauty, which is why I've made a post before wherein that I said that the barista at the local coffee shop has just of a chance, a shot at getting a capable, resourceful Muslim man as the sister with the PhD, if not more, because she's conditioned due to her work to be agreeable, right? To not be confrontational, right? So these are the things, and obviously in most cases, if she's hired to be a barista or a waitress or something of that sort, she probably is a bit of a looker, right? She's attractive. Not all, but most times, right? And so with that being said, she checks off a lot of the boxes. She's attractive, she's agreeable, she's kind, she's compliant, right? So
what about the age, though? That's what she's asking about.
Right. So those factors are there. And so the first variable, the attractiveness, the reality is women oftentimes, their youth and their beauty is heightened. It's at its peak between 18 to 25, preferably probably around 23, 24. And so that starts to decline with age. So that's why age is so important.
One of the reasons.
Right. And so that's why I gave you all of those things, right? The attractiveness, right? The agreeableness, right? The kindness, right? Those are all variables that men look for. But one of the initial things that men look for is attraction, youth, and beauty.
Can I just add as well, sis, for those of you who are not familiar with this whole conversation, the youth denotes the beauty and the agreeableness and the sense of still having that innocence. And I want to use innocence in the best way possible, okay? Because people can often twist that as well. Say, oh, you just want someone you can control, right? Because that comes out too. But really, it's a case of somebody who has only lived a small amount of life and hasn't been burnt too many times, hasn't had too many adventures or issues or men or whatever the case may be, from the data that we're seeing is more attractive to most men because it's just not going to give them as much of a headache. And I think we know, because as women, as we get older, just as human beings anyway, as we get older, we become more and more rigid, right? We become, most of us, okay? We become more set in our ways. The better we know ourselves, right? You know, that's why I always say that it's ironic, actually, that sisters 35 plus, women 35 plus, actually have a longer list than women who are 22, 23, 24. The reason they have a longer list is because they've lived more. They've had more experience. They've been burnt more. They've probably done more things. They are clearer on exactly what they want. So they basically end up kind of getting really precise on what they're looking for, right? Really super precise on what they're looking for. And that means that the pool it shrinks, right? It gets smaller because they're like, I can't have a man who does this, and I don't want a man who does that. And he has to have this because in the last relationship he didn't. And then this, so there's all of these variables. Anyway, coming back to the original question, the youth side of things impacts the agreeableness and the beauty, but also the fertility. And we can't deny that. For a man who wants to have a family, who wants to marry and have children, a woman who is younger is undeniably, in general, more fertile and has more energy and a longer period of time to have babies. That's one of the reasons why all of us, where we came from, girls would get married late teens, early 20s, right? Because those societies all valued having children. And for most of our societies, they valued having many children. And if you want to have many children, you need to make the most of your fertility window, basically, right? So sis, in answer to your question, you may look amazing at 40, but your amazing at 40 is not comparable to somebody's 22, even your own 22, right? And it's not just about how you look on the surface, because mashallah, there are some 40-year-olds who are extremely well kept. But the reality is the biology doesn't lie. We have fewer eggs. We're on our way to menopause actually at that stage. And that means something to a man who is looking for a woman that he's going to build a family with. Now, if a man is not looking for a woman to have many children with, right? If he's not really interested in having kids, maybe he's done that already or whatever, age may not be a factor for him, certainly with regards to fertility, right? He could be open to an older sister because his requirements have changed. He may want a sister who's slightly older because maybe for intellectual reasons or professional reasons or emotional reasons or whatever, right? But he is, I would argue, among the minority of men whose priorities are different. Majority of men, first-time marriage, they're looking for someone who's going to be the mother of their kids, and a younger woman will always win when compared with an older woman. It's just biology. Have I done justice to that, Brother Nasir? And let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are.
No, I think you did, and I think we got a great hashtag for the show. Biology don't lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for the sister Aisha, feedback, what do you think about our response?
Right, I'm going through the chat here.
Can I see one other point?
Brother Ibrahim is saying in this about what I said, men tend to prefer a younger woman who can get into his frame, right? Who can be flexible and who can be flexible in this new surrounding, in his home, in his frame. Whereas a woman who gets older, she becomes set in her ways, and this can become challenging. And guys, listen, I'm not going to be, you know me already, right? I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I am 45, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. I'm grateful for every year on this earth. There is no way.
45?
At 45, it is 45. Thank you.
Okay. Apologies.
We're not there yet. So at 45, my mindset, my manners, my habits, my expectations, nothing like I was when I got married when I was 22, right? What I was able to cope with at 22, what I thought was fun and adventurous and cool at 22, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, no, you know what I'm saying? And that's a reality, right? That most of us, by the time we get to a certain stage, you are set in your ways. And it's difficult. You can do it. You can unlearn things. You can learn new things. You can choose differently, right? But it is a struggle. If you're going to marry somebody at that age and try to get into their frame, it's like this, right? And especially, you know, for sisters who have been independent for a long time, have maybe been looking after themselves for a while, a man coming along, yani, it's tough. It's tough. So first time marriage maybe wouldn't be the first choice, I think. Everyone should get married young. We on this channel, we stand early marriage. Okay, so that's what we're doing.
yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things for me, it's that emotional piece. It's that emotional regulation piece, because the more challenges and traumas that you've gone through and heartaches that you've gone through in life, it leaves its residue. And if you are the typical woman, just like the typical man, you haven't learned how to regulate your emotions. And so as a man who's put in work to build up the capability to have resources to be able to provide, why would I take the chance on someone who's had more challenges in life when I could easily take someone who's had less challenges, less the opportunity of there being more residual emotional damage there with an older sister is there, versus someone who has less experience in life, who's been more sheltered, who is more coachable. And I know that word sets off a number of sisters, but that's just the reality. Men want women that are coachable. If she's getting on his team and following his lead, then you want someone that's receptive to being coached, being led. But if you have a problem with the leadership aspect and the husband being the leader, then you're going to have a whole, issue with this whole men wanting someone who's younger and more attractive.
Guys, I just want to speak on this, please, inshallah, because the chat is going absolutely crazy. So Sis said, I know looks are important, but shouldn't be the most important thing to look for when looking for a wife. Look, we know this, guys. We're all adults here. Okay, we're all adults here. Ain't nobody wifing you up in the Muslim community anyway, just because you look good. Like there's like other factors. But we all know when we have leverage. We all know, right? And every one of you probably have your own leverage, right? I may be, for example, I'm light-skinned, right? If I'm in a society or a community that favors dark women, I'm not going to like that. Look at Brother Nasir. For those of you who are asking, he's African American. In African American culture in general nowadays, what do they all say they're looking for? Tall, dark, and handsome, right? So I'm going to take Brother Nasir out of it because he's a man and men don't tend to do this, right? But as women, we do, right? The point is that even if I'm in a situation where I'm at a disadvantage because of my skin color, because I'm light and everybody wants dark, it doesn't make sense for me to rage against the fact that everybody wants a dark sister. That's just not what I have in terms of leverage, right? There are communities where my skin is preferred, right? If I'm a woman who wears niqab, if I go to a community where brothers are not checking for that, right? They don't want to marry a sister who wears niqab. It doesn't make sense for me to attack those brothers and say, but you should want a sister who wears niqab, because the fact is that they don't. And for most of us, the reason that we feel some kind of way about people's preferences is because we know that we might not be their preference in that area, right? It's within us. We feel maybe I don't have the looks, right? I don't compare well to this one or that one, right? I may not have the fit body. I may not have, the level of religiosity, of course, depending on, the marketplace that you're in, right? But recognize that that's what's happening. Recognize that what is happening is that you're getting triggered by this requirement because you feel somehow that you don't fit that. But remember that there's levels. And when it comes to looks, men, I think, will admit, right, that they find a wide variety of women attractive, right? It's not just the so-called 8, 9s, and 10s, right? People will find a broad range of women attractive. So it isn't like there's one beauty standard and all the men are for that one beauty standard. Brother, can you speak to this, please? Because we keep saying beauty and attractiveness. But as a man, and maybe the brothers who are here as well, can you just give that some nuance for the sisters in the chat and the sisters who are watching?
No, I think the post prior to this one speaks to it. It says, y'all always talking about the younger women. What about women who want companionship? And I think that's an important point. And I think some men will value companionship, right? With someone who's mature intellectually and emotionally, right? That's a level of companionship that a man of resources and a capable man will value. That doesn't mean he's going to marry you just for that, but that's another thing that you can have that you can double down on or use, enhance to bring to the table because you've lost that other reality, i.e., the youthfulness, the beauty, right? You're still attractive, but you're not as attractive and as beautiful as you were when you were 18 through 23, 24. So acknowledging that and finding out what are the other areas that I can enhance that men look for versus trying to fight against it, right? So I think that's the route for sisters who, because I see in the comments a number of sisters are saying, so what about us who are older, right? And for you that are older, what you do is you double down on the other things that men may find attractive. And that's what you need to learn. Put your time and energy into that. Follow channels like Sister Naima's that are speaking about that. what are those other things that I can bring to the table and not think that I am the table?
I want to speak to this point, Sister Mona, jazakAllahu khairan. Okay, so the theory goes like this, guys. This is just the theory. We know we're far from the theory, but the theory is this. You grow up, you and your brothers and sisters are raised, okay, to fulfill the roles that you will fulfill in later on in life as women and as men. You get married young to a good man, to a good woman, with the support of your families. You have children. The husband works and does his best to provide for his family. The woman looks after the children as best she can. The husband and wife are committed to the institution that they've created, and they stay together. They see it through to the end, right? They see it through for the sake of the next generation. And then when that next generation reaches adulthood and steps into their maturity, the cycle repeats itself. And this time the children are available later on to then take care of the parents, right? So they get married, they have children, and the grandparents, who are now grandparents, they get to see the family continuing before they return to Allah. That's the theory, okay? That's the general timeline. Obviously, there have been breaches, many breaches, right, to that continuum. First is putting off marriage. Another is having relationships outside of marriage before marriage, right? Marrying later, potentially marrying somebody, the families are maybe not as supportive, or whatever the case may be. People quitting on their marriages, right? The reason we have so many, wait. I want to say two things. Men not fulfilling their role, women not fulfilling their role, parents not fulfilling their role and prioritizing what their responsibility is. What does that lead to? It leads to broken homes. What do broken homes lead to? They lead to single mothers and men who've been divorced and children who will now have, parents who are separated, right? What does that lead to? That leads to second marriages. What is the likelihood of second marriages failing, Brother Nasir? What's the statistic again?
75%. It's like 75%. Terrible.
So 75%, guys, on your second marriage. And these are just statistics, guys. I don't want anybody to get triggered or upset. This is just statistics. It's just data. It's just data for us to be aware of. So we've broken up that home. We've broken apart those two families for whatever reason. And now we have two single people who have baggage. Those people with baggage go on to marry somebody else. Statistically, 75% chance of them breaking up. Maybe they have more children in that situation, but it doesn't work out. So now you have a situation where that father has got children with two different women who he has left. That woman has children from two different men who are no longer in the picture, no longer in the home. And so the cycle continues. The children grow up seeing that. They take whatever lessons they take from that. And we're out here on these apps, having been married 2, 3, 4 times, children from several different men. None of them are involved, right? Or if they're involved, it's in a cursory way. Families can't get involved in these marriages anymore because it's just too traumatic, right? So when I say that the breaches there are several breaches to how this is supposed to run, I hope you understand what I'm saying. So, okay, all right, that's the problem that we find ourselves in. We are in a less than ideal situation. What can we do to reverse this? Reverse engineer it, guys. Marry earlier. Prioritize finding a life partner over extended education and even getting onto the property ladder and all that stuff that they told us, right? Prioritize preparing your children for marriage. In fact, this, Brother Nasir, this is the timeline that we're going to teach from now on this platform. Get your head sorted when it comes to these issues for yourself as an adult. Get clear. What is the priority? Did I have the right priorities coming up to this point? Have I got baggage? Let me deal with it. No matter who you are, brother, sister, single, divorced, widowed, polygamous, monogamous, I don't care. Where are you at right now? What are your ideas about men? What are your ideas about women? What are your ideas about the roles that we should be playing, right? Can you take yourself to account for the mistakes that you have made? Can you make amends for the mistakes that you've made? Can you make a decision to move differently moving forward? That's for you, and that's something every one of us can do. Next step, teach the next generation. Teach them better than you were taught. Prepare your sons to be men. Prepare your daughters to be women. Teach them the correct priorities according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next stage, find good husbands and wives for your children. Marry them as soon as they are capable and support them in that. Constantly learning how to be in a relationship, how to nurture a relationship, what role you're supposed to play, getting your children to focus on making sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. Be there to support them. And then when you're in that relationship as a kid, the next step is, those of you who are in marriages right now, you have a part to play. Keep your homes intact. Get the help you need to keep your home intact. Whether it's counseling, whether it's therapy, whether it's distance, whether it's a second wife, whether it's moving to another country, try your best to keep your homes intact. Because all of these problems, and the reason why we cannot answer questions like this easily, is because it's been broken several times along the way. It was never meant to be like this. It was never meant to be like this. And the thing is, if we know divorce is allowed, it's bound to happen. It happened during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, right? But guaranteed, if fathers were playing the role they're supposed to play in their children's lives, even if they are no longer with the mother, and if women were playing the role that they're supposed to play as a wife, even if he's not the father of your children, I think that the narrative on marrying so-called single mothers, I think it would change. Because it didn't used to be like that. A generation ago, people were not out here saying, don't be a stepdad. Brother Nasir, do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. There was a time when being a stepdad was an honorable thing. It was doable, right? Because you knew that your wife, she's going to respect you regardless. You're going to be the man of the house. You came in there and you were appreciated for the stuff that you did. There's no reason to say why we cannot have that again, right? But more importantly, the fathers of those children, don't stop them from seeing their kids. Don't take them to court and accuse them of abuse so that you can get sole custody. Again, another breach. So the way that we are moving through this modern society is creating problems that don't have solutions. We have to unpick this one step at a time if we're going to see a change in the next generation. And Allah knows best. I hope that, I don't know, what do you think about all that?
No, you said everything that needed to be said. Yeah, nothing to add. Nothing to add.
The CC, for example, says the same thing, right? At the end of the day, we know as Muslim women, we're allowed to work and have our own wealth. We know this. You keep your work halal, you're allowed. That's your money. For many of you, if the father is not stepping up and looking after the children, you have to, right? So my question is, there are always brothers who are going to marry older women. I'm sorry to say, but it's true, right? Brothers, in general, average men don't have the leverage to have the woman that they want, especially if they don't have the money. And guys, you can come for me in the comments all you like, but you know what I'm talking about. If you don't have the paper, your options are limited, because especially the most desirable women, they want the guy with the resources. They want the guy who can give them the lifestyle, who can keep them in the style to which they're accustomed and all of that, right? So there will always be potentially good men. Yeah, I want to say, and I believe this. I think Brother Nasir disagrees with me on this, but I believe there are good men out there. And when I say good, they are Muslim and they have good hearts. They have the right intentions, but they may not have the wallet size that you're looking for. They may not have the fully paid off house. They may not be able to buy you a car. They may not be able to take you on holiday once a year or however long it is. Are you open to making a deal with that guy? Can you make it work? Because when you get to a stage where you're older, you've got money, but you want to get married, but it's your first marriage and you're like 42, bruv, it's done. The chances of the traditional family is over. So let it go. I am an advocate of sisters being hyper realistic when it comes to what they believe they can get. Because if you're 40, I remember hearing about sisters who will be on the apps at 42, never been married, subhanallah. And she's out here saying, I want a husband to have children with and start a family. I'm looking from 40 to 50. And so, and of course she wants him to, even though she's a doctor or she's kind of got her own place, she still wants him to provide for her fully. He has to be able to provide. He has to be able to take of his Islamic responsibilities. And it's like, sis, you're not at that stage anymore. Is it that important to you? What are you prepared to sacrifice for? Can you conceive of a man that would be worth you being flexible for? Is a relationship worth it? Is a marriage worth it to you? Will you die a virgin dying on that hill? Is that cool for you? Do you want to experience love and belonging and companionship in your life? And are you prepared to be flexible in order to get that? These are questions you have to ask yourself. But a lot of sisters are too proud, man. By the time they get to 40 and they've got their house and they've got their money and they've done all their self-work and they're healing and they're the best versions of themselves, they don't have humility anymore. They consider it settling. I'm not going to settle. I know who I am. I know my worth. I'm not settling. Oh,
and I know my truth.
Yeah. Oh, la, 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 la. That was a lot, guys. That was a lot.
It was needed, and so I agree with you, though. Actually, there are definitely great brothers out there who don't have the resources, right? And I think some of them, though, not all, but some of them do suffer from the same issues that women do in terms of choosing a woman that is out of their standard, out of they're shooting too far up, right? So they need to lower the type of woman that they're looking for, right? I think that becomes a problem for some brothers as well. So if you don't have the resources, understand that you're not going to be valued by certain women who have resources. Can you strike a deal with her? Sure. But understand there's going to be challenges because she's marrying down. And oftentimes women don't like to marry down. I would say majority of the times they don't. So then you need to probably go, which a lot of men are doing, is go where you will be valued and wanted. So that may mean not finding a sister in your locality, which again, a lot of brothers are doing, even brothers that do have resources. But this is the other thing that's not being addressed here, though. You know, when sisters say brothers won't marry someone who's older, it comes back to the point that I've made a number of times. A good number of you, in terms of sisters, although you know my broad understanding of what a sister is, yes, that was shade. Yeah.
We will not go back to that this week. We're moving forward, always onwards and upwards. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know, because you're still on that mountain.
Yeah, 100%.
So back to the point before I was sidetracked by someone. So what I want to say is, sisters, those of you that keep coming back to this, men don't want to marry older women, a good number of you also have this fixation, this obsession with monogamy. And that's the elephant in the room that we're not talking about. Because a lot of the sisters who are older have this thing that they are too good for monogamy. I mean, too good for polygyny. And who told you that, sis? So we can't talk about the tradition. It's not the way of the Prophet Islam and the companions and all that. We can't say that, but not also acknowledge that in the community, they were taking care of the divorcees and the widows. One of the means by which they were doing that was polygyny.
That is a missing piece. Thank you so much. Guys, when we make the PowerPoint presentation that kind of paints the picture that I painted today, we have to add that. We have to add normalizing polygyny for ourselves first and foremost, and then for our children, right? And in the community, allowing it to be an option for those who wish to practice it upon khair. Seriously, I had a podcast recording with the sisters from the Outstanding Personal Relationships, Coach Nasir's wives. And we were talking about this. And we were talking about how within the narrative of the community, we have problematized the institution of polygyny, right? We've problematized it. We've said that is the reason that sisters are not happy, that, you know, brothers are kind of overstepping the bounds, sisters are being exploited, children are being traumatized, homes are being destroyed, people are losing their childhood, you know, so much betrayal, so much hurt, so much pain, all of this freaking polygamy, yeah? That's the narrative. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. But that's the narrative. That's the narrative. Unfortunately, the same things can be said of monogamous marriages, because guess what? It's human beings involved in both of those institutions, right? We know of people who've been betrayed, people who are unhappy, people who had their hearts broken, children who've been traumatized, divorce, abuse, domestic violence, all of this stuff. Most of it's happening in monogamous marriages, guys. That's the reality. I remember Coach Nasir making this point, and I was like, wow, that is such a good point. We point at the institution of polygyny and say that's the problem. But actually, guys, we are the problem. It is the people in the institution behaving in ways that are not befitting. That is the problem. And if we were going to actually look at, you know, how much whatever good or bad happens in different institutions, I don't know whether polygyny would actually come out as the worst one, because there are more people in monogamy who are having problems than there are in polygyny, just because there are more monogamous families, right? There are more monogamous people. So to your point, and to add to this matrix that we're creating, getting a grip on our own ideas about something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal and has put barakah in, right? Like this whole thing of sisters, men, women, whoever it is, yeah, because of their own personal bias, justifying why polygamy was okay then, but it's not okay now. It was okay in a certain time, but it's not okay anymore because, well, we've evolved, innit? Like, our society is so much better now. We have so much more respect now. All of this nonsense. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw fit to mention in the Quran that you may marry 2, 3, or 4, and then, you know, if you cannot, then just choose one. If he chose to mention it in the Quran, do you not think that it's important? Do you not think that Allah Azza wa Jal considered this institution worthy of mentioning in his eternal book? Like, seriously, how many things in the deen do we do on you know, as a matter of course that is not mentioned in the Quran at all? Allah never mentions it in the Quran, but we know because of the example of the Prophet ﷺ, etc., right? Polygyny is mentioned in the Quran. So for those of us who are trying to wiggle out of it because we feel ashamed, or because we've got a personal experience, or because we have imbibed trauma from other people who have been hurt in the institution, we need to cleanse ourselves, right? Because just as you said, not only working on our own attitudes towards polygyny for ourselves and normalizing it for our children and our daughters and our sons, right? Don't bring your daughter up with the idea that if a man loves her, he will never marry another woman. Don't do that to her. Don't teach her that she has to find the one and she has to be the only one and all of this stuff, either from your actions or from your speech. Don't do that to her, because it's not fair. You're setting her up for potential disappointment. Don't tell your son that he should be happy with one woman, right? Tell him to be a good husband to as many women as he is capable of doing. Teach him how to be a man. What is a man? Not that simp from Hollywood. Trust me on that. Not that guy who's there running after his wife and trying to placate her and trying to make her everything, and she's his everything. And if she's not happy with him, then he doesn't sleep. That's not what the hadith says, bro. It doesn't say that. If you raise your son to be a simp, he's not going to be happy, and he's not going to be that strong man who can lead. Because if he's following after his wife, maybe because you made him follow after you as his mum, and constantly be trying to get your approval and your validation, which is your role as a mum, guys, and we talked about this on the stream yesterday, right? If you are setting your son up in a situation where he feels he's constantly performing to get your validation, your approval, that mummy must be pleased with him, you will make him into a weak man. And his wife will have the whip hand over him. Mm-hmm. And that's not what Allah is. That's not acceptable, guys. Not to say there shouldn't be love there. Of course they should. Look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ. One of the most merciful, and I would say humble husbands that we have example of. Merciful, loving, passionate, all of the good stuff, right? But he was a man. And he knew where his responsibilities lay. And he knew which side his bread was buttered. And he made sure his wives knew as well. Like, he put them on notice. If you or your son cannot put his wife on notice, if your daughter cannot accept to be put on notice, we're going to make more problems for them. So normalizing it within ourselves, normalizing it within the Muslim community in general. And wives, if your husband's only married to you, if you want to put in your contract that he can't marry again unless he divorces you, you know what? Knock yourself out. But if you are married, my advice is know in the back of your mind that it could happen, that it could be a possibility. Know that at the end of the day, he could exercise his right, and don't get crazy. Do not stoop beneath your dignity as a Muslim woman by acting crazy. Because when your husband, if he has the cojones to come to you and say, babe, this is what I want to do. And you say to him, divorce me then. I don't want to be here. Well, fine, then go and do it then. I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids. Don't you dare. You promised me. I don't want this. Yeah. And you make his life a living hell. One of two things is going to happen. He's going to do it. And you've ruptured what you guys built, right? And you're going to have to eat humble pie. Or he's going to do it, or he's not going to do it. But in that situation, you have emasculated him. He's not going to forgive you for that. And you will not be able to forget that. And you may feel good in the moment. You may feel great. I got what I wanted. I got my way. He wanted to do this thing. And I was like, hell no, you're not doing that. And you know what? He didn't dare. Listen to that. Is that a man that you're going to respect? Is that a man that you're going to lean on, that you're going to rely on, that you're going to follow? Hell no, you're not following him. And that's the chop logic, sisters, right, that we have to deal with. You may want something, but it's bad for you. And you may dislike a thing, but there is good in it for you. And I can't think of an ayah in the Quran that is just, it just hits the nail on the head for so much of this stuff that we talk about. It could be that you dislike a thing, but there is good in it for you. And it could be that you like a thing and it's bad for you. So the other thing is, make the option of honorable halal polygamy, make it an option on the table for discussion, for conversation. Because if you don't, you're either pushing something under the carpet. And this whole conversation about secret wives, which we've talked about here on other channels as well. Why does a man take a secret wife? Give me, what do you think? Brother Nasir, firstly, you can answer that. And then you guys in the chat, in the comments, Answer me that question. What are the reasons why a man will not disclose to his wife that he either wants to take a second wife, or he's going to, or he has done? What are the reasons? 1, 2, 3, go.
So a number of points. And it comes back to something that I said before. Sisters keep other sisters single. And it's important that sisters, when you mention that brothers don't like to marry older women, divorcees, if that is true, if that is the reality for some brothers, then you must acknowledge, if we're being logical, the need that is there for polygyny. That's just basic logic. That's rudimentary. So when other sisters, those that are married and those that just follow the crowd, are against polygyny, you're only hurting your own options if you are in a situation where you become divorced. So that's one thing. And or not even divorced, but have not been married. And I can tell you that when I speak to sisters who are in terrible marriages, marriages that need to end in divorce, and they're older, they still are against polygyny, even when they're in their 40s. And again, that's why earlier I mentioned this lack of acknowledgement of the wall. When you understand that the wall is real, it will allow you to move differently. Because as you said earlier, biology doesn't lie. So when you understand the wall, you understand that externally you may look like you're in your late 20s, but internally you're 40, ma. That's just it. That's reality. So you have to accept that. And that comes with accepting the wall. And so one of the things that I think we need to have a very important conversation on is this knee-jerk reaction, this immature reaction that a lot of sisters and some brothers fall into this because it's so widespread, is this referring to brothers as cowards if they take a wife in secret. Right? So we can't on one hand say that we're concerned about the mental health and the emotional well-being of brothers, of men, but also then on the flip side, when we don't get what we like from them, or they exercise options, we then begin to engage in the dysfunctional behavior of labeling and rating them. Right?
Two things.
Because that's unhealthy.
Two things. One of the things, ain't nobody care. Ain't nobody care. Okay. Ain't nobody care.
Nobody cares. Nobody
cares. It's just talk.
And you choose violence, no problem. I can take that. But then on the other hand, don't try to tell me that you're concerned about the mental wealth. I mean,
no,
the mental health of
no,
men.
no, nobody cares about the mental health of men. I said this from our first episode. It's just
and don't
talk.
tell me you want brothers to be vulnerable.
No, right? It's just talk. It's just talk. We agreed this, guys. We know that the game is up, bruv. The game is up. We now know that I want a man who can be vulnerable. Brothers should be vulnerable. It's just code. It's just code for listen to me and validate my emotions. That's what it's code for, right? And maybe some emotional openness, sure, yeah. But let's not get sidetracked because we're onto a good thing here. We're onto a very good thing here.
So the point of the labeling, and just a side note, this comment, please make sure that we come back to this. Secret wives are haram, and that's straight.
No, just address it right now. When we say secret wives or private arrangements, what are we talking about here?
So two things. One, why is a brother choosing a secret wife or a secret or private, as I would prefer to use? Why is a brother and a sister? Because let's also acknowledge that these are two adults choosing to keep their marriage private. Why are they choosing to do that? And see, I think when we don't ask that deeper question, which is intellectually dishonest, it's because we don't want to take ownership for our own unhealthy opinions that we bleed out into the community, that then creates a community where people feel as though they have to keep their marriage private.
Yeah, check this out. Check this comment out. I agree with you 100%. This, for me, is an example of the narrative. I think you have to know yourself well, because the drama from polygyny could very well be the road to hell. Okay, are you going to say the same for? Are you going to say the same for a marriage? The drama that comes from a marriage, the drama that comes from joining a new family, the drama that comes from children, the sacrifices that you have to make, the difficulty. You're going to say the same thing about everything? People, and again, it's not the institution, it's the people. Don't blame the institution for the way the people are behaving. Of course, every situation puts pressure on us. This dunya, guys. This dunya is a place of test and examination. And every situation that we get ourselves into is going to put pressure on us for in different ways and for different outcomes. So those of you who went to university, right, and you studied something hard, yeah, like medicine. I got big respect for people who study medicine. I could never do it. But what did you sacrifice in order to complete that degree? Was it easy? Was it pleasurable? Was it fun all the time? Did you lose sleep? Did you lose friends? Right? Were you stressed out? Okay. Were you in a bad state emotionally, physically, mentally, whatever? Did you spend or rack up debt? Did you have to forego a lot of the things that other people were doing and sacrifice in order for you to have that MD on your name? Yes, you did. And the reason you did that is because you believed it was worth it. It's the same thing with children and child rearing and childbearing. It's the same with marrying one man. It's the same as marrying two women. It's the same as taking care of your elderly parents. This dunya is a place of test and examination. Somebody put in the chat that, monogamy favors women or something. And I want to say to that, it favors women who are married. Obviously, he was trying to make the point, I think, that monogamy favors women over men. So polygyny is more like it favors men more, or men get more out of polygyny than women do, right? But the reality is monogamy favors women who are married, women who have first wife status or only wife status, who have the privilege of having someone. It's just like we talk about, tax rules or whatever the case may be, favors people who have money, obviously. But does that mean that we don't ever think about those who do not have that? When you say that, one of the things that came up in the conversation today was people saying that, polygamy is all about the man and what he wants. Sorry, did he not marry a woman? Didn't he marry another woman? Isn't there now another woman who, mashallah, has a husband, who has companionship, who has a halal outlet for her desires, who has a protector, who has another adult in her life who cares and is looking out for her? Sorry, did all of that barakah not happen? Mm-hmm. What, because the first wife has got her nose out of joint and she's vexed about it? So none of the other barakah counts because she's upset, because this is not what she wanted, because she didn't choose, because she didn't agree, because she didn't want him to do that. So all of the other barakah is discounted now. Doesn't mean anything. Because my feelings were hurt, because he did this thing to me. I don't agree with this. It's wrong, guys. I remember somebody who wasn't Muslim who was watching one of the videos talking about polygyny, whatever, right? And it was talking about this particular experience of polygyny, which is the first wife's kind of what we're now calling trauma, right? When her husband married. Mm-hmm. And this person was very confused because they were like, hold on. Muslims all know that a man in their religion is allowed to marry up to 4 women. So why do Muslim women get married and expect monogamy? Wouldn't it make more sense for them to marry and expect that maybe there will be somebody else, if not 2 or 3 others? Because that's a part of our deen and it's a part of our culture, and it's been the culture for many, many years in most of our communities, right? And to be honest, I could not answer the question. Because, well, we can talk about society and changes and everything, but if we're going to be real about this deen, guys, if we're going to be sincere to Allah and His Messenger, we need to unpack a lot of this stuff. We really, really do. So let me just read off some of these answers why people said why a husband would not tell his wife. So we've got, he doesn't trust that she can handle it. Sis says, out of respect, he should mention it. Later says, because she might go crazy on him. From what I've seen, some men do it because their wife is involved in shirk. Whoa, okay. Aisha says they don't tell their wife because they don't fear Allah.
Hold on. They don't fear Allah?
Maybe the wife doesn't fear Allah, or maybe the husband doesn't fear Allah. That's why he doesn't tell her. I'm not sure.
I think it's important just to make a quick note here before we go to the next one. Please remember, the best of example, the Prophet ﷺ was not getting approval from his wives before he took on another wife. Let's just make that very clear. Very clear. He was not seeking approval or validation.
Yeah. I want to speak to this. I want to speak to this point here. Brother says the reason a man does not disclose is because she threatens to destroy the family, the marriage, which is what I mentioned earlier, which a man wants to keep to maintain the family. Now, I know of a situation where a brother had married quite young. He had several children with his wife, but really him and his wife, it was a mismatch, right? We know this happens, especially in an arranged situation. It's a mismatch. He did not feel fulfilled with this wife on a lot of different levels, but that's the mother of his children, right? So he's like, I can't leave her. I can't do this because I personally am not fulfilled. What can I do? And of course, he knew that he had the option of marrying again. But when he discussed it with his wife, she was like, absolutely no way. If you do that, the kids and I are gone, right? So he's in a situation where, as far as he's concerned, I either stick it out with the mother of my children, and I sacrifice myself and I deny myself something that is halal, and I'm unhappy, and it impacts my work, it impacts the way I show up, it impacts my whole life experience, right? To keep her happy and keep my family intact. Or I take the avenue that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed for me, and I have another wife on the side. Do things Islamically, Yani. You've got your witnesses, you do your nikah, you have your mahar and everything, right? Just to take the pressure off this marriage. Because if I stay in this marriage and that's all I have, I will eventually divorce her because I can't stay in this situation, right? So this was obviously his reading of his situation. But how many women want to hear that? How many of us, and I've said this before, and I think I'm going to keep saying it actually, because I really think it's a question that we don't ask enough. How many of us are so sure that our husband is satisfied with us as a wife that we in our heads think that he has no reason to want anybody else? No reason at all. I don't know.
That's a question that sisters need to ask. But I think that entitlement, that lack of humility, would not allow some, not all, but some, to ask that question, because that's an important question. Because when you come from the Disney fantasy, how can I not be enough? How can my presence, me being the table, not be sufficient for any need that he may have?
Yeah,
right.
And you know
and who is he to want more than what I'm given?
That's one. I think that you hit the nail right on the head right there. He's not all that. He's got this flaw, right? He's not perfect. Who is he to want more than I'm already giving him? And that is not to say that the sister's giving him all that she could be giving him as a wife, because sisters, a brother mentioned that his wife said that she wants to lose weight for him. And he told her, not to bother. He loves her the way that she is. And that, a husband, what did he say? That men value good wives and mothers, right? Good moms. He said specifically good moms, right? And the thing is, while I think that's a wonderful sentiment, and I'm sure that his wife feels very secure in that relationship, I think there can be a danger of expecting all men to have that same sentiment. That because I have had his children, he should not have a standard for me. That he shouldn't have expectations of me, because can't he see I'm busy raising his kids? I'm busy having his kids. And this could show up in, for example, the amount of time and attention he gets, how his needs are prioritized within the home, also intimate activity and private time, not to mention obviously the physical aspect and how you show up in that space. But I have a sneaking suspicion that for many of us as sisters, our identity within our families and our identity as women within our families is tied very much to our role as mothers, much more so than as wives. So even though the dean teaches us to ask ourselves, how does my husband feel about me? Is he pleased with me? And to take ourselves to account for that, right? Because that's what the hadith says. Mm-hmm. The woman came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, I do this, I do that, I do that. And he said, how are you with your husband? And then she said, I serve him and I do not disobey him in anything. And he said, good, because look to him, for he is your heaven or your hell, right? I don't think, because of the society we live in and all the stuff, I don't think many of us actually are real with ourselves when it comes to the question of, how is my husband? How does he really feel about me as his wife, as his woman, not as the mother of his children, not as the homemaker, not as the community this and the auntie and the the daughter-in-law and all of that stuff, but as his wife, as his woman in this space between us. What do you think? Because this is something that's been on my mind for a while. What do you think in the comments? And Brother Nasir, what do you think of that? Do you think I'm being unfair?
No, I don't think you're being unfair. And I understand the sentiment of that brother. But I would say to him, if he was working with me and asked me, yeah, tell your wife you love her and you appreciate her as your wife and the mother of your children, 100%. But also buy her a treadmill. Brothers, don't see. I don't know the context, so I'll take it away from that brother. But don't set yourself up to be unattractive to your wife, because that's kind of a spineless comment, right? That's a simpish comment, right? That's a man. What I hear, and brother, whoever you are who said that, I don't know your situation. So again, I'm taking this away from you. I'm just looking at the comment on surface. It may not apply to you in your situation. But what I hear is the unfortunate mantra that we regurgitate of happy wife, happy life. So let me make comments to her that will appease and lead to her happiness, versus the reality of, no, Ma, you need to stay in shape. Yes, I love how you are with our children, but as my wife, I need you to get on that treadmill. And that should be okay for him to say. And that segues into what we were discussing earlier in terms of what are some of the reasons why a man and the woman he chooses, the other adult, would choose to keep the marriage, the second marriage, private, because he has evidence that she is more than likely going to respond in a manner that's not healthy for the family, not healthy for herself, nor healthy for our relationship. And so that's why I was saying earlier that this perspective of labeling a man as a coward because he chooses to keep his second marriage or third or fourth private is intellectually dishonest and emotionally immature. More than likely, what has happened is, for the duration of your marriage, he's taken an assessment. There's been a temperature check on how you handle not getting what you want, how you handle discomfort. And so now when this issue has come up, he's made a logical, informed choice to keep it private versus telling you because of the history of evidence that he has. Now, you may not agree with that logical choice, but it can still be logical to him based off of the evidence that he has of how you will handle discomfort. So saying that he's a coward is really a cop-out. versus having the humility to say, what have I shown him in our marriage that would lead him to think that the best option is to not tell me? See, that's accountability. It's accountability to find out my husband has chosen to engage in a halal marriage, but kept it private from me. What would make him? Is there anything that I've done that is demonstrated to him that he should do that?
All right, I'm going to give you the pushback that everybody wants on this particular issue, right? Because I know that, if a clip of this went out into the atmosphere, the first thing would be, he should not have done it. You are blaming the victim, you are gaslighting, and you're telling sisters it is their fault that their husband went and took a wife behind their back. How do you respond to that?
So first and foremost, when you clip it, just make sure you direct them to my Instagram, Nasir al-Amin, NasirAliMN, and on YouTube, same first and last name. Follow a brother, like as well. So what I would say is this: that's not emotionally sound logic. Meaning, the brother has to accept accountability for his choice. What I'm referring to is the logic behind the choice, how he got there. And how he got there is an assessment of the experience he's had with you throughout the marriage. Now, as I've always said, the feeling is always valid, right? But the thinking that underpins emotions can be accurate or not. And so his evaluation may not be accurate, but that doesn't mean it's not logical. Meaning he's taken the evidence that he's seen from you that demonstrates that, you know what, she's made this comment here that when her girlfriend's husband took a second wife, she praised her for destroying the family or throwing things or packing up the kids and leaving, right? She praised that. So that's evidence for him that if I do the same, regardless of who the sister is, how she can be an asset to the family, how she can be an asset to our kids, how she can be an asset to me, she's still going to cause a disturbance. She's still going to create drama because throughout our marriage, she's praised the drama that other women have engaged in. That's evidence. So in the model, we always want to challenge our thinking. Our thoughts are hypotheses that we make about what's happening. They're hypotheses about ourselves, others, and life conditions. So we make a hypothesis. We have to test it out. One of the ways in which you test it out is you look for evidence. What is the evidence for or against what I'm thinking? What is the evidence for me choosing to have a private marriage? Or what is the evidence against it? So he's looking at the evidence that you've given him throughout the marriage. Now, later on, you guys can discuss that if the way he evaluated was healthy or not. But the point that I'm making is he's making an informed decision based off actions you've taken. The question that's the challenge for sisters is this: are you willing to do a self-assessment of yourself, what you think, feel, say, and do in relation to polygyny? What have you shown your husband throughout the duration of the marriage is going to be your response. Because if you've demonstrated, it is an act, I would say, generally speaking, a general sense, I would say it is an act of concern that he is making an informed decision, i.e., he's looking at how you responded and then making an informed decision, not a hasty decision. What's a hasty decision is when you find out that he has a second, third, or fourth wife, because we can't have four. When you find that out and then you start causing drama, That's not healthy for your kids to see. That's not healthy for the relationship between you and your husband. That's hastiness. What you are lacking is not making an informed decision of saying, you know what? I don't like the fact that he's taken a second wife, but let me look at how he has been as a husband up until this point.
Yeah.
And here's the sober reality. At my age and with these kids, can I honestly get better? If I went out on the market right now, do I have the leverage to get better than what I have right now? Some of y'all need to stay at home. You need
You know
to
what?
accept what you have.
Can I just say,
You go out on these streets, don't let IG and brothers looking at your pictures get it twisted. You go out on these streets post 35 with kids. It's cold out there. It's a cold winter.
Two things. One is I agree. I want to co-sign on what Brother Nasir said about, sisters, wives, initial wives being strategic, right? And I know her sister said to you, she has a message for you to say, please be merciful in your delivery. We are emotional beings. And how you say things matters, Yani Malish. But what I want to say is, although it can be very difficult, sisters, to regulate those emotions, especially when it just feels like it's taking over, it's worth putting in the time now to just learn to recognize the thinking that is producing the emotion. So, for example, in this comment here, I think her reaction is why he keeps it a secret. I feel like many wives automatically think he's getting number two because she's lacking in something, or because wife number two brings something wife number one never will. So the first thing I want to say about this is that this is a thought, it's a story that you're telling yourself, right? He's getting the second one because I'm lacking, or this second wife is bringing something that I never will. So the first thing is that these are stories that you're choosing to tell yourself, and they're going to make you feel a particular way. But then the other thing, I want to lean into this, because what if it's a true story, right? What if you are lacking something? Is that okay? Is it okay to not be perfect? Is it okay to not be the 100% full package? Is it okay to accept that your husband has needs that you cannot fulfill? Can you be okay with that? That's the first thing. And then in the case of the second comment, is it possible that another woman can bring something of value to your husband's life that you either cannot or do not want to bring? Is that possible? And can you be okay with that? Because this is the advice I give across the board, if your husband is a good man, and if you guys have a stable home, your relationship is normal, is within the bounds of normal, and it's a good place to be, aslan, right? Don't you be the one to break up that home. That's if he marries again, whether he tells you he wants to do it, whether he does it and tells you after, whether you find out, whatever the case may be, please, sisters, do not be the one to break up the home. And you may like it when I put it this way. That's your house. That's your marriage that's 5, 10, 15 years in. That's your kids that have a father and a mother and a home together. Why are you going to give it up for someone else? Because another woman came in the picture, now you have to destroy everything? Why should you do that? Sorry, this is a bit territorial. This is that first wife game, okay? Give to first wives. Why are you going to just blow up everything that you've built for the past 5, 10, 15 years? What, because another woman came on the scene? If he wanted to leave, he would have left. If he wanted to destroy your home, he would have walked out. So that's clearly not what he's trying to do, right? And I'm giving brothers the benefit of the doubt here, because I know that some brothers be wilding when it comes to this thing, but I'm going to give brothers the benefit of the doubt here, that you're a responsible man who cares about your wife and your kids. And for whatever reason, you've decided to marry again. If he wanted to destroy what you guys have built, he would be moving very differently. He would have left, he would have kicked you out, he would have walked out, he would have divorced you. So that's clearly not what he's trying to achieve. Don't you be the one to break things up. Do what you need to do in here and in here to work through this and see what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planned for you and your family, your husband, and this set of responsibilities that is now, I want to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him more responsibility, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened the door for him to take on more responsibility and inshallah earn more reward. So now the game has changed, right? Previously it was you were the main responsibility and your children. That was the game. You both knew it. You played by the rules. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him amana of another woman and potentially her children. So now the field of play has changed. But you still have your role to play, and she has now her role to play. Play your part. Play your role in the game so that you can win fi dunya wa fil akhirah. And Allah knows best.
And I think there's something to be said, and I don't think we talk about. I have not heard this, and I cannot think of a time, and maybe you have because you're a sister. I have not heard a discussion around the cost spiritually, the cost in terms of your relationship with your Lord and your faith around being the first and trying to destroy your husband's second marriage. Because like any woman or any person that tries to destroy a marriage, that cause a divorce, we would view that as haram. Like this is, you don't do it. But I
hadith about it, and Shaitan loves the shayateen that come between a man and his wife. It doesn't say between a man and his only wife or his first wife. It says a man and his wife. So that's a subhanAllah really good reminder, brother. SubhanAllah, I hadn't even thought about that.
And I can't speak for you, but I've never really heard that conversation in terms of sister, first wife. Look, I understand that it's not what you wanted, but be mindful of trying to destroy that marriage because there are repercussions to that. Right? We don't hear that conversation.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. No, because the conversation is, and these are some of the things, right, that we see in the community. The conversation is, if she can't handle it, right, and if the family breaks as a result, it's his fault because he should not have ever gone there in the first place. That's the first thing. But then the other thing as well is, I think for, if I'm going to speak on behalf of the body of women, it is the belief that if he really loved me, he wouldn't do it. Speak to that.
Yeah, I think I'll speak to it from a man's perspective, but I just think actually, let me approach it from a counseling, coaching perspective.
No, we want the male perspective because that's the right perspective. We want the male perspective here.
So my job is finished because I got you to repeat it. So look.
It's that CBT, guys. It's Pavlov's dog. I'm just being conditioned here right now. This is grooming, okay? So in case you didn't know.
There you go. So what I would say is, and it speaks to what we've talked about a number of times before, and you mentioned earlier, that's a narrative that you told yourself, right? And because you're telling yourself that narrative that he does not love me, hence he took a second wife. That's a narrative. That's the evaluation you made after the perception of him getting married. So you got the new information.
That's the cultural narrative. That's the cultural narrative. It's not even just an individual one. The cultural narrative. If your husband loves you, he would never do that to you. So how do
Right. So we can choose what cultural narratives we want to embrace. We do that every day. Right. So we can choose that. And so we expect men to make healthy choices. So we also have to expect that women will make healthy choices. and choosing not to follow that narrative that love can only look this way in a marriage, right? That's unhealthy. That's not a helpful narrative. It speaks to what we were talking about before, when you make this demand that your spouse, your partner, has to express love, his affection for you in a certain way. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't count as love. If it doesn't meet my love language, then it's not considered as him expressing love to me, right? And so, i.e., if he engages in polygyny, then it's automatically a indication that he doesn't love me. And that's a narrative. And that narrative has to be challenged. And it's on the sister to do that, right? Because she creates that narrative. And
I think
a point to earlier that you mentioned that I think is very important is, sisters, don't put that pressure on yourself that you have to be everything to your husband. That's an unrealistic expectation. That's very unrealistic, and that's going to lead to emotional discomfort. And it's probably going to lead you to rating and labeling yourself, which then will lead to self-downing. And then you fall into the rabbit hole of anxiety and or depression. Anxiety that now I have him, how do I keep him? Right?
Ain't nobody thinking about that. No.
Yeah, that's that.
Nobody cared about that.
That's that undercurrent of a core belief that's showing itself in protective behavior, mate guarding, right?
Right.
The mate guarding is the external action that's underpinned, though, by that fear of losing, right? That anxiety of being alone, right? And so I would just say, sis, don't put that pressure on yourself that you have to be everything to your husband, because I think a healthy man is not expecting for you to be everything to him. And hence, there may be another woman that can provide things for him that he doesn't necessarily expect you to provide.
Which in its own way is merciful, I think, because being held to a standard where you are expected to be every woman and 100% in every way that's pressure. That's real pressure, subhanAllah.
Yeah. Especially as a man grows and develops, right? What he may value and be interested in at 25 may not be the same thing he's interested in at 35 or 40. Right? And he can't demand of you to be that if that's not where you were at when you both got married.
The call lines are open. Oh yes, the call lines are open.
I look, Sister Layla, I think you hit it on the head. It boils down to, actually, can you read this, please?
It boils down to what Brother Nasir said about tolerance and emotional regulation, and accept Allah's decree. Number 1. Yes. Okay. Right, guys.
The best perspective.
It's Nasir's perspective, not the male perspective. Okay. Right, guys. Calls, the lines are open. The link is in the chat. Who wants to join us?
Man.
You can't just identify with whatever you want to identify with out here. What is a man anyway? Alhamdulillah. Right. Whitney could not handle being every woman. This is very true. Sad. Sad but true. Allahu Akbar.
And that's a very good point. But so a couple of things that you mentioned earlier that I wanted to speak to that I want to address. One of them, when we're talking about the drama, the comment that said the drama of polygyny could be what leads to hell. And you made a very good point about questioning the drama of various things. One of the things that as I work with sisters is, are you also holding that same standard to the drama of dating? Right? Because so many are engaged in this dating thing, right? So what about the drama of that? Just a point. You can jump in on that if you would.
I'm on my hill. I'm on my hill. Okay. Me not know about them thing there.
Okay.
So me not talk about it. Me not chat about it. Sister Juwairia is here to join us. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum, sis. What have you got to add?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to both of you. MashaAllah. You guys raised a really, really good point on all the subjects. And there was one thing, as Father Nasir said, sorry if I'm saying my name wrong. I'm unmarried. I'm in let's say 35, I think, at the moment. So there was a time when I really wanted to get married young, and I tried everything. I put in the work, I put in the effort, but Allahu Alim, it just wasn't in it for me. It just wasn't written for me. So sometimes sisters do try to put in the effort, but sometimes it's not just written for them at the time. So that's one thing we need to acknowledge, that it's not your time just yet.
True.
And one of the things was when I was talking the polygamy, I was open to it, but one of my conditions was I would prefer he informed me before he did it. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want the whole community to be gossiping about what my husband is doing behind my back. Even if I'm upset or I agree with it, I can't say no, because Allah gave him the choice and it's halal. And if he marries, and as I used to say to my mom, it will take the pressure off me.
Pragmatic. El pragmatico.
Yeah. Let's be honest. When you're a mother, when you've got kids, when you've got housework, when you've got so much things, and sometimes the husband comes, it's like, come on, let's go, and you're like, I'm not in the mood tonight. Can you can be like, oh, I'm not in the mood, but she might be in the mood. Why don't you go visit her tonight?
Outsource.
I'm sorry, but you can, yes.
Outsource. Some of the best companies have become successful because they outsource.
Yes.
Don't outsource intimacy with your husband. No.
Come on, sister. No. He might be in the mood. He might have desire, but you're tired. You're not in the mood. So I'm sorry. It's halal. It's halal for him to, It's halal for him the same as me.
Yeah. I like it.
He can get it from there, and I get a night off. I have a really nice sleep when the kids wake me up in the morning.
Yeah. Hey, look. All this is following tradition of one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ who gave her nights over to Aisha, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So, but that's what I mean. There's a lot of good people tend to focus. My parents were in a monogamous marriage. Polygamy marriage, and since my mom was like a second wife, so mashallah, they were really good. I watched them. My parents been married like 40 years. I've watched it. I've seen it. Yeah, mashallah. And she married quite young. She was like 16 when she married. She had me 17. So yeah, so mashallah. And I watched it, and I saw how it was working, how the women were towards each other, how they would behave towards each other. That for me gave me like, okay, that's the right way to do it. A lot of people tend to see the bad.
Yes.
And also because women like, he's married another woman, what's wrong with you, kind of thing. And,
women can be the worst, Women can be actually the worst.
We are our worst enemies to our sisters. When we see something going good for a sister, right, saying mashallah, we attacking her. We literally we like, let's say maybe we see a sister who going through she's not married at a certain age, like, what's wrong with her? Why does no one want to marry her or whatnot? Maybe she might not be ready or it just didn't work. And like brother Nick said, at a certain age you do hit a wall. When I was 20 and late teens, the what I was getting, the proposals, the people coming to my parents, it's not as it was.
So let me ask you, sis. So may I just ask you, just like, if you don't mind, because a lot of the time, I know in the conversations about this sort of outside of the Muslim community, right?
Yeah.
There will be women who will say, look, I'm 35, I never found anyone, right? It's been this long and I never found anybody suitable. And a lot of men push back on that and say, hold on a minute, I bet you did get decent proposals, but you thought maybe there's another one coming, maybe there's a better one coming, right? Or for whatever reason, you didn't lock it down when you did have decent proposals. Was that the case with you, do you think, if you're honest?
There was quite a few that I never actually gave a chance because I didn't like the way they looked or the way they acted, the character. Right. I didn't. There was quite a few that came very close. One of them, we spoke. He met my parents and everything, and when he was ready, he just disappeared. He ghosted me. So there, I will be honest, there were times when people came, but I wasn't in the right mindset. Right. I'll be honest. At that time, when I'm like, listen, I'm sorry, I can't do this right now. So yeah, but I'm sure there was some point where I didn't even, my mom or my dad came to me and said, this person. I was like, no, straight away, because I thought like, oh, why are they going through my parents or something? I don't know. I was in one of those rebellious stages where I didn't want to hear it, to be honest.
You know there was what, sis? Thank you for the honesty. No, I appreciate that.
Your
that
honesty.
Is big things. Yeah.
I
didn't amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. And you know, sis, what you were saying about how your parents were in a polygamous marriage for 40 years, that impacts your ideas about polygyny, doesn't it? And that's what I was saying, is that people base their ideas about polygyny either on what they've heard or a negative experience that they've had, right? Or they've seen somebody else go through. But it's not the institution. Some people make it work. Some people make it work beautifully, because mashallah, Allahumma barik, 40 years, it's not much to be sneezed at, mashallah.
Yes, and sometimes people talk about how monogamy is the best. Sometimes it's not. I've seen monogamy marriage get destroyed for something little, or because they couldn't communicate properly, or like one of the things I noticed, I don't know if the other community, especially in the Somali community, I'm from Somalia, you know, when women get married and they start having kids, they focus so much on being the mother, being the taking care of the household. They forget to be the wife.
This is what I was saying.
The husband becomes third, fourth, like it's all about the kids.
Right.
It's all about the kids, and then afterwards the housework, and then is the other family members, and then the husbands become like the husband who, basically. So they don't have
hence outsource it.
But this is exactly what I was saying, because you see, if that husband now decides to marry again, I'm sure that there will be people within his space that will say, how could he do that to her? She's such a good woman. Look at how she works for the house. Look how dedicated she is, etc., etc. But really what they're looking at is her as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, you know, as somebody that they can benefit from, right? But they're not looking at the benefit he may not be getting from her because he's not a priority.
Yeah, because there's no time for as a husband and wife anymore. There's no time just for you without the kids and the household, the rest of the family involved. There's none of that, because when you guys met and it was just you had all that time, all that energy to put into together. But now you don't have that. And so maybe it might be easier on both of you if you got a second wife. But people don't see it like that. People see like, oh, how I'm the mother of his children. I went through all this. I did this for him. I did that for him. How can you marry another woman?
Yeah, it's true. You're right, sis. So, bang on. Bang on.
Yeah, it's true.
If I had the air horn, I would put it off for you. Mashallah.
Also, the one thing, there was the text you guys read, or the DM or the Instagram, and my wife have to keep it tight. That one, for me, for what the woman saying was a bit much, to be honest. But it would depend on where my husband was coming from. Have I let myself go? Am I not putting as much effort into my appearance as I can? And he even says to me that and say, look, darling, it's kind of like you letting yourself go a bit. I get, but it has to come from a place of sensitivity. Let's be honest, as a woman, we are very sensitive about body, and especially if you have children, it's very hard to get everything tight again. You don't have as much energy because you run around after the kids and whatnot. So it takes time. So for him to be like, to mention in a sensitive way, yes, to say like, you letting yourself go, and he has to
How would you? Okay, give us a script. I'm really curious about this. Give us a script, okay? And girls, ladies in the chat, in the comments, those watching afterwards, if you can think of a way that your husband could share with you that he is no longer attracted to you, right? Because you've let yourself go, because whatever. And this is not fixed just to wait. It could be that you don't brush your hair anymore. Girls, you know this is an issue. We know, yes. Right? The sisters out here not brushing their hair anymore, you know, maybe not shaving, maybe the feet have become crusty, you know, just also Nasir needs to come out of this conversation.
We don't put as much
go back. Sorry, Brother Nasir, we'll bring you back when it gets less sensitive, Malish. But how could your husband share with you that his attraction to you has waned, that it's less than it was before, in a way that you could accept it and be able to move forward with it? Can you think of how he could do that? And let us know in the comments, guys, because we want to hear from you as well. What do you think? How can you say it?
No comparison. Don't compare me to anyone else, because that will give me complex. Be honest and deliver well. Yes, I'd rather you were honest with me and you came to me in a way you're like, let me be honest with you, and then you just sugarcoated everything and for you to feel some way. Okay. So for you to
no comparison and be honest.
No comparison. Be honest, and the wording is very important. How you deliver it.
We need a script. We need a script. What do you want? What are the words you want him to say?
Without criticizing, you can be like, darling, what's going on with you? You haven't been yourself. As I noticed, you haven't been brushing your hair properly. Is something going on? Is it, is the house? Is it the kids? You're not taking care of yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. Is there something going on that I don't know about?
Okay.
Would you like to? Is there anything you want me to help you with? Is there anything I can do to help, to put the pressure off you? And then maybe he can be like, listen, I was thinking, how would you feel if we did an activity together and we go running in the mornings together?
Okay, so that's one way for him to kind of be maybe not as forthright, but you get the hint.
You get the hint. Yeah. And he's like, would you like, I can put the kids to bed, just take some really, take a bath, take a really a bubble bath.
Just that's if you haven't been showering regularly. It's like, okay, why don't you just have a bubble bath?
Why don't you take time for yourself? To put you do so much for us and you do so much for the house, so much for the kids. Why don't you take an hour to do things for yourself, to do your hair, to do your makeup, to do self-care.
Yeah, you see, the sister C-Man has the same idea. She says he could just hint at the subject. Darling, I love that dress on you. You deserve a break. Go to the salon, hang out with your friends, buy her perfume, compliment her. So this is the script from these sisters. But then Bibi says, I don't need him to say it nicely. He sees your worst. It should be a marriage of honesty. My husband and me are brutally honest all the time. Okay.
I didn't say nicely. I said the way he delivered. Someone can deliver something and the way it comes across. It doesn't have to be nice. You can be honest, brutal, but the delivery. Because it's important how you deliver.
How do we rate this one? Okay, brothers, can you put in the chat how you would do it? This is great. Put in the chat how you would communicate the fact that you've lost attraction to your significant other, and we will give it a rating with Sister Juwadia. All right. So Sheikh Nesa says, this is his one. Would you like me to take care of the kids so you can spend some time on yourself?
Nice.
Guys, what do we give that? What do we give that out of 10?
We give that an 8.
An 8, yeah. What about you, sis Tahiyya?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thanks so much for joining the stream, sis. What do you reckon?
SubhanAllah, the sisters raised so many important issues. SubhanAllah, she's been vulnerable. jazakAllahu for sharing.
Thank you.
It's really, really interesting because, on one hand, we tell sisters, you need to be this perfect person. You need to do everything that it takes to be everything for your husband. And we know that men are not expecting that from us, but this is what society has kind of put on us. And then on the other hand, they tell brothers, all you have to do is have the money, chase the bag, and that will be enough. And obviously, we know Islamically that that is not all it takes for marriage. Allah has made it clear, you know, how an ideal marriage would be. It would have affection, it would have mercy, it would have tranquility. Subhanallah. And everyone in that marriage should be working towards that, subhanallah. And if it means that, brother, you're going to have to learn how to communicate to your wife, do that, subhanallah. You know, I always say to sisters when I have a conversation about marriage, I say to them, the most important thing that I believe that the most important thing in a marriage is commitment. Because I believe that when you are committed, what commitment means, it means that you do what it takes to make the marriage work. Whether it's learning something, whether it's unlearning something, you do what it takes. Now, getting back to remember Sister Naima in the comments I did say before, Brother Nasir, please be careful, because subhanAllah, I've been there, and I said it in the comments, you know, I got triggered by a Fitbit. You know, I got triggered.
So wait a minute, hold on, wait. Let me get this straight, because I did see your comment, mashallah. I didn't put it up on the screen, but sorry, let me just get it clear. So he was talking about buying a treadmill, and you were like, treadmill? What? I got triggered by a Fitbit. Tell us about that. Let's unpack that a little bit. Brother Nasir is here, so he can, you know, he can give you.
All right. So subhanallah, I'm gonna start off with I didn't want to share this, but I'm gonna share it anyway. So I'm recently divorced. And subhanallah, all these issues were about polygyny. I've experienced them, and now I'm in a better place. I'm in a place where I'm like, yes, I'm all for polygyny, but I haven't been like that. And this is one of the points why I wanted to come in the studio and talk about, is that when Allah blesses us and we are aware of something, that we know something, we should remember that this is a blessing from Allah. When you know something, it's not because you wanted to know something. The knowledge that all of us know is not because we wanted to have this knowledge. It's been chosen by Allah for us to have that knowledge, and there is a purpose for it. And now, how we choose to use that knowledge, we are going to be accountable for that, subhanAllah. So I always take time to appreciate, and I think I mentioned it in the comments yesterday, that everything that I've gone through that is painful has taught me a lesson. And I do not look at anything in a negative way. I just say, Alhamdulillah, Allah put me in that position for a reason. And sometimes Allah put me in that position because Allah wanted me to learn first and foremost, because when you go through something, what do you learn? You learn to be empathetic to those people, to people that experience the same thing as you. Because I honestly believe that until someone goes through something, the same thing or a similar thing, they cannot empathize with what you're going through. They can sympathize with you, but they cannot empathize, because however much they want to understand where you're coming from, they might not have the capacity to understand what you're going through. Now, that being said, I remember when my husband first said to me, my ex-husband, when he said to me, and I want to put it out there that the reason why we're not together is not because of polygyny. So I want to put that up. I accepted it, and alhamdulillah, I said to him, you know what, if it's something that you want to exercise, you know, we're as far as even saying, you know what, you want to marry a friend of mine, fine, you can do that. But I want to talk about that as well. But I'm going to go through that as well.
Listen, sis, hold on a second. Whoa. Can I just say, inshallah, we are going to have a polygyny live stream. Okay, this is not the polygyny live stream, but we are going to have one definitely, inshallah. So please hold that story for when we do a polygyny live stream. But what I would love for you to share with us, if you got triggered by the Fitbit, what was it that triggered you? What was happening? What was the thinking? What was the meaning that you took from that? Just so we can put it into context with what we're talking about at the moment.
Okay, so bismillah. So to when I look back to that moment and I think about how I felt or what it meant to me for him to say that, because it's not a case of him saying the truth that triggered me. It's the way it's the way, like the previous sister, I forgot her name, mentioned that there's a way women want to hear things, you know, and and it's like even men. There's the way men want to hear things. I can say something, be sincere to a man, be truthful to a man, and he will take it in an offensive way. And I'm not going out of my way to be offensive to him, but he will take it in an offensive way. Similar to the sisters, that a brother can be sincere, a brother can be truthful, but the way he says something can hurt a sister's feelings. Because for me, in my case,
right, go on. Sorry.
It was the case that he before this he had never said anything to me about my weight or, you know. So now if you're buying a Fitbit, and it wasn't only a Fitbit, it was a weighing scale that tells you everything, your BMI.
Wow. So he was dropping hints. Okay, these were hints. Okay.
It was one of those that you could connect to an app, and that app would track your weight, and he had it on his phone. So obviously, me being a woman that is from the West, and I don't know if any other woman would have found it offensive. I can only speak from my own experiences. But you know, like I'm thinking, okay, so this is a bit OTT, and where is it coming from, and why are you tracking my weight? And why is it a problem? You know, and obviously now the thinking I have now, I'm a bit more red pill now, and the feeling, the thinking I have now, there's not the same thinking I had before. You know, I had the thinking of, you know, I accept you the way you are. I expect you to accept me the way I am. You know.
So if he had said to you, "What supernova he has put," you're letting yourself go, babe. You need to work on yourself. Would that have landed differently? What would have happened?
I've been offended. I would have said, if he said to me, and I said this to my husband, I did have a conversation about it, and I said, if you know, astaghfirullah. I remember like I had a conversation, but maybe it happened in my mind. Allahu Alam. So, but what I thought to myself is, he would have had a much greater success if he said, babe, let's go for a walk together. You know, let's go for a jog together. You know, connecting. And I did put that in in the chat room. I said, you know, and this is something I've also listened to some experts advising. Connect before you criticize. You know, because sometimes people are so quick to criticize that they haven't built that relationship, you know, where someone, because for example, when you have friends, but you're not going to give advice to every friend that you have. You will give advice to that friend that you know you have that kind of friendship with. So some marriages, they don't have that friendship. And that's why when something is brought up, it's like whoa, like I'm already dealing with the things that I'm not getting from you, and now I have to deal with this attack on me, because whenever someone says attacks you or you feel attacked, the natural thing for a human being to do is to become defensive and to shoot. We're also good at communicating our pains, communicating our anger, not our pains, but our anger, rather than communicating our needs.
SubhanAllah, sis, I want to just jump in there, and I want to hopefully open up the floor for Brother Nasir, because I heard something, and I'm sure you picked it up as well, Coach Nasir, which is when you are attacked, right? And we're talking in a context of a man saying or trying to communicate that he would like you to get back in shape or get back control of whatever it is, right? And you said when someone attacks you, and then you changed it to when you feel attacked. Brother Nasir, what is happening there when in a situation like we're describing, a husband expresses, however he does it, that he would like you to get back in shape, and you feel attacked or you believe he's attacking you. What is going on there psychologically?
So before I answer that, and I'll ask you to remind me of that question, I think one of the things that we have to remember is emotions don't reign supreme. How you feel is how you feel, but you take ownership for how you feel. That doesn't mean that it's going to control the way your husband is going to lead the marriage. This is why I said it last time, and I said it that way intentionally, because I wanted to shake sisters a little so that it helps them to make the adjustment early so that it doesn't lead to divorce, is the concept, the truism, fall in line. Your husband getting you a Fitbit, me buying a treadmill in my house, is setting a standard and letting you know, fall in line. One of the expectations is for you to stay in shape. Now, when that happens and you choose to perceive it, you make an evaluation that says it means this about me and he must not love me. Not saying that this is what you said, I'm just throwing in potential narratives. Or I'm not sufficient, or I'm not enough, and this is, no man is this and this and this. That's all the narrative that you bring, the meanings that you bring to a situation. Hence what you were saying in terms of when you feel attacked. You feel attacked because the thinking that underpins that feeling of being attacked is a narrative that you created. So what I would suggest for sisters is, and again, sis, this is not for you, this is just in general, let's stop the cap. The reality is, any way that a brother brings up to you that your weight is becoming a problem, more than likely you're not going to like it. And the reason why you're not going to like it is you're creating a demand on how it must be articulated. Now, to the point that you were saying, sis, I actually agree with you. I think one of the ways, and if you go to my Instagram, you'll see the story, Nasir al-Amin, make sure you follow it. You'll see that I made a post last night of being on the treadmill, getting 2 miles in last night. Why? Because I told myself this is something that I know I need to be doing on a daily basis. I need to get in 2 to 3 miles a day. That's what I've said to myself I need for my own health. But that's also setting the example. So I agree. One of the best ways that a brother can let his wife know that she needs to be mindful of her weight is by making sure that he demonstrates in his own life that he's mindful of his weight. I think that should precede whatever he says to her. And that should be the layer that's always there, that he is demonstrating that his health, his well-being, his fitness is a priority, just like he's asking it for it to be of me. That's the integrity gap, which comes back to the question you asked at the very beginning of the show. The integrity gap is making sure you're closing the distance between what you say and what you do. And so you can't be saying to your wife that you need to stay in shape, but yet you can't see your toes. That's problematic, right? So first, to answer the question, I believe brothers should model what they want their wives to do, and they should put money there. So buy a treadmill, buy a Fitbit, buy whatever she needs to make it convenient for her to be able to stay in shape. But two, sisters, you got to get out of your feelings. Reality is, how you feel is on you. What is he articulating to you? That's what you need to get from this. This is a moment of leaning into logic versus leaning into the emotion. Because if he's telling me through trying to aid me by buying a tool or something that I can use to help me with my weight, he's also potentially conveying to me that this is what he wants from me. And why would you not want to give him what he wants? Because The reality is there's sisters outside that are willing to give him what he wants.
I want to bring Sister Juwadia in, but before we do that, I really want to jump on this, Charlotte, if you guys don't mind, yeah? Sister was asking about, whether it's the effort that the husband is looking for, or is he looking for a particular result? And then she said, what impact does this have on children? They pick up on these types of things. Their mother dieting, having poor self-esteem, how best to prevent negative influence on them. I wanted to say for a second here that we need to normalize looking after ourselves. That should be normalized, right? What does that mean? Being active, drinking water, reminder to myself first, eating well, watching what we eat, not gorging on chips and biscuits and cake, not ordering, takeaway 3 times a week, eating greasy chips, greasy pizza, burgers, chicken nuggets, not cooking, not having salads, right? These things, we have to, okay, let me just pull myself together. Having a healthy lifestyle is not a negative thing, right? Watching what you eat is not a negative thing. Why would children pick up on negativity because their mother is careful about what she eats? Only because of you, sis. And I'm not saying this about the person who said this, but that's on you. If you have worked yourself up into a state of anxiety, right, and frustration and depression and self-loathing due to your weight, that's on you. You need to stop doing that. And making it seem as if, being encouraged to eat well, to lose weight, to get fit, to get strong, whatever the case may be, is somehow inviting you to unhealthy behaviors. It's chop logic, and it's probably some kind of straw man or something. Yeah, it's something. Okay, I don't even know, but it's something. It's or red herring. It's something, and it's intellectually dishonest. Because if my husband says to me, I want us to go vegan for 3 months, right? Oh, vegan, yeah, okay, that's new, different. How come? Let's talk about it. So then he says, look, I've been looking into it, and these are the benefits, blah, 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 blah. Let's do it. Okay, I'm falling in line. I'm on the program. Let's do it. I'm going to look into how can I make this amazing? What could be great about this? What could I learn from this experience? And guess what? My kids are going to pick up on the fact that I'm excited about taking better care of myself. I'm excited about looking after my weight, about getting healthier, about eating better food. Why should your children pick up on low self-esteem and stuff like that, as if the only reason you work out and watch what you're eating is because you hate yourself? Surely it should be because you love yourself. Again, it's the story that we're telling ourselves, right? It's the story. And I think that's really important. It's important not to be telling yourself a story that if I'm watching my weight, I'm somehow doing something wrong. I'm not accepting myself as I am. I'm putting myself under an unnecessary and negative pressure. That you're not. If we started eating according to the sunnah, like strictly according to the sunnah, trust and believe, majority of us would have to completely overhaul our current diets. And we know this, right? And no one would say that, for example, filling a third, a third of food, a third of water, and a third of air. If you decided to do that, would you think that, oh, I'm starving myself, I'm at risk of anorexia, I've got some kind of mental disorder because I'm not filling my stomach? No, you wouldn't, because you would see the benefit of it and you'd say Bismillah and you would do it. So sisters, again, and brothers, the work is here first. If you are telling yourself that working out is somehow demeaning or is humiliating or is something you shouldn't have to do and you're only doing it because of X, Y, and Z, I don't have a lot of help. I don't have a lot of hope for your results. And also, if you don't feel good about it, change the way you think about it, because that's what the problem is. The problem is not the thing that you're doing. The thing that you're doing is good, right? It's a good thing to be fit. It's a good thing to be strong. And we talked about this on the last live stream, didn't we? SubhanAllah, I can't believe that we're back here again. But in the last live stream, we actually talked about this, right? Which is, I I remember, just a little story time. I remember when I was living in Egypt, and alhamdulillah, like weight has never really been an issue, but I never was into exercising. And when I was a teenager, I wasn't really into sports and stuff like that. I enjoyed the cultural activities, the choir and the debate and all of that. But there was a sister here in Egypt. She was a full niqabi, jilbab and everything, right? But she was a fiend with her workouts. She was an absolute beast. And she used to use YouTube videos, and she worked out for at least half an hour every day. And she was in impeccable shape. I think she had 6 children, but she loved it, right? She loved it. It was one of those things that just gave her such a rush. She would cook in the morning so that she could do her workout after she came home from work. Like it was that important to her. It was part of who she be. It became part of her identity anyway. Us done, right? But my point was, if you saw her, you would never expect that because you couldn't see anything of her. She was completely covered, right? She was completely covered from head to toe. She never took pictures or anything like that. But she had embraced being strong and fit and healthy and having energy and sleeping well and looking good. She had embraced that as ibadah. And it made all the difference, subhanAllah. So really the thinking, feeling connection, guys, we keep talking about this. It's real. How you think about things will impact how you feel about them, and then how you perform and how you show up in them, guys. So this issue of healthy eating and the weight and the exercise, we're making it an unnecessarily triggering conversation. It shouldn't be, right? So anyway, I'm going to stop talking about that. What do you guys think?
So I think so, mashallah, my family has been on a vegan diet, even my daughter, for the past 5 years. And the year prior to that, I cut out dairy, I cut out meat and chicken. It was a gradual thing, not with the intention of being vegan, but just health-wise. I knew I wasn't disciplined with the quote unquote moderation of those 3. And then I never put pressure on my wife to go to a vegan diet, but I demonstrated for a year the reality of being mindful of what you consume and making that connection between what you consume and how you feel. And she had seen the evidence of that because she was obviously sitting there with me when I would eat on a daily basis. So my point is, men should lead by example. And thus, subsequently, we ended up going on a vegan diet. And why am I bringing this up? One, the point of men should lead. 2, I also remember, and we get it often still, we have this kind of fixation with we can't say no to our kids when it comes to what they eat. So I don't give my daughter sugary drinks and sodas and cotton candy and all of this stuff that we know is not healthy for our kids. The reality is, the uncomfortable reality is, we are the ones that set our children on the path of addiction to sugar. We do that. But I can't tell you over the years, the young life, alhamdulillah, mashallah, of my daughter, how many times when we've been offered candy to give to our daughter, which we don't do, or offered fried foods that we don't give, where people have just literally said we are depriving her. And so it's asinine, but it's a reflection of the mindset we have in terms of the relation of our health and what we consume. It's like we are oftentimes mindless. So what I would encourage people to do is just think about what you give your children. Honestly, what are you allowing your children to consume under the guise of you don't want to deprive them, right? And that's a model that you are modeling the future eating habits of your children. You're setting them on a certain path. And so coming back full circle to what we were talking about, I think it's one, important for men to lead. I think it's two, for us to be intellectually honest about what we consume. And three, sisters, you got to get out of your emotions on this one. You have to take accountability. If your husband is giving you a cue that he wants you to be fit, he wants you to, and I know this is going to be uncomfortable, shape up, then do it. And do it quick. Because he can find someone else.
Oh, okay. Sister Tahiya's back. All right. We were with you right until the end, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me tell you why.
Let me tell
you why I speak this way to sisters. Sisters, I have love for you as your brother. But what you cannot deny is you guys have been lied to, given those uncomfortable truths. That's why you're in the situation you're in. Because society and the Muslim community and from the member, you keep getting those uncomfortable lies. So then when someone has a masculine frame and energy that's willing to stand on his square and not accept less, it's foreign to you. But yet you don't understand because you're also aroused and attracted to it. So the uncomfortable truth is you lose leverage with time because you hit the wall. Uncomfortable truth. So when you come to a man that is providing, that is on his deen, and he's there for you, when he asks you to make certain adjustments, don't push back. And again, before this is clipped, and if it is clipped, make sure you lead people to my Instagram, Nasir, al-Amin. Understand, I'm talking about a healthy man. We're not talking about some brother that's, not on his deen, spending his night smoking shisha and hanging out with his friends, coming in all late. We're not talking about that type of brother, right? I'm not asking you to lead someone I'm not asking you to follow someone that's not even leading himself. That's not what this is about. We're talking about men that are literally practicing their deen, that's asking you to tighten up. You should not be asking why. You should just tighten up.
No, he's my husband. He has the right to ask me, such as I have the right to ask him if he was letting himself go to, tighten up. So
you had to get that in there, didn't you, sis?
No,
yeah, but see, that's the problem.
I had to get that in there.
Brother Nasir, no, I believe.
Sis, I love you, but I'm gonna join in here.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason why it's your problem is what you have to do is be strategic with your husband. That's what you need to do, because if not, he has the leverage to exercise options.
Okay, no one said you can't.
This goes back. It's okay. So let's. Okay. I can feel the energy. What I was saying. This is what I was saying earlier. No, what I was saying earlier was that remember I was saying that a lot of the stuff that we understand from the deen, actually it doesn't sit well with us because it's in direct conflict with what we've been told about our own worth and our own everything and our place within our husbands' hearts. So I think that's one of the reasons why there is like this visceral reaction. But guys, I know this is fun, but I really want to bring Sister Zuleika in because she she brought, mashallah, a lot of the points about the working out. You mentioned about disorders. Let's go, sis. What did you want to say?
Well, could everyone hear me? Is that
yes?
Well, thanks so much. I'll be brief because I am conscious of all the time that we can discuss this. But what I meant, I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding. What I meant, I 100% agree with everyone. If I believe in like autonomy. Everyone should have control over their own health, over their own fitness, all things that are extremely important, and I'm sure from nutritionists to fitness experts, everyone, it's all out there. There's data, there's research about it, about ways to live long, healthy lives. For the majority of people who don't have disabilities or illnesses that are of no fault of their own, but we know that that's the fact. What I meant was that as probably everyone knows, a major issue for young people, I'm talking about Gen Z people up to the age of 18, eating disorders particularly in young girls, are shooting up record numbers. Most health systems don't have the capacity to kind of deal with that demand for treatment for these young girls, and it's linked to social media. We know it. We know Jonathan Haidt, the psychologist, always talks about how TikTok, Instagram, these kind of things are really fueling a serious mental health problem among young people. An epidemic, which is by the way they eat. And eating disorders are complex things. They're complex psychological disorders, but we know that also in the research, and this is quite interesting actually, and I think it'll be wonderful for one day to see on your show tonight, maybe talking to some Muslim psychologists or therapists who deal with young Muslims with eating disorders, because young Muslims, people from an ethnic minority, poor treatment for them, in bad diagnosis, bad results to help these young girls with really poor outcomes when it comes to eating disorders. But we know that children, as children, are very good at picking up things, even things that are not explicit. They are very good at picking up behaviors with their parents. And as we've been discussing, somebody saying that they would like their spouse to maybe take more care when it comes to their fitness, to be more like them, to try and encourage them, because I think it's encouragement mainly that we're kind of asking for, encourage someone to do things that are beneficial for them. That is, put that aside, there's also how we as individuals deal with real self-esteem problems when it comes to weight, whether it is real, whether someone is really overweight, and that you could say that self-esteem, that low self-esteem is as a result of that, but self-esteem for people that are not really overweight, even people who just don't like the appearance of their bodies. But we know children pick up on these things, and they notice when their parents are not, or their mother, for example, is not eating dinner with them, is constantly making comments about particular foods, about their body, statements like "I hate myself today," or "I hate the way I look," or "I feel so fat." These are statements, and there's a lot of psychological research on this, on particularly in pediatric psychology, on understanding what impact does this have on children. And the data is actually quite stark when you think about it. It's quite depressing, because it seems like the smallest thing. How can the way we see ourselves, which we have every right to be able to have this criticism of ourselves, how on earth could that affect a child? And sorry, go ahead.
No. Please finish your sentence.
Oh, yeah.
I'll jump in afterwards.
It's thinking, but so sometimes people are not aware that behaviors that are they're not very conscious behaviors, that everyday behaviors about something as everyday, as daily as food, how that impacts a child. And the data shows those children have a much greater risk of suffering from eating disorders. And that's the worry. That's the worry about.
That's the point that I was bringing up earlier, in terms of we model for our children healthy eating and healthy exercise and healthy living.
Yeah.
Because what you're describing is not healthy, right?
No.
A woman who is like depriving herself in the way that you described, who is, criticizing her body, complaining about her body, that's not healthy, right? That's not a healthy approach, right?
Yeah, no, it's not 100%. But what I mean is that it might not even be very obvious behaviors, but the point is that for some reason, children are able to pick up on this quite well, and this maybe has something to do also with the school behavior, so peers bullying the fat kid, for example. When it's the environment, the home environment. It's not that you need to shelter children from certain things. Of course, you need to teach your child that it's not like maybe you shouldn't have sweets every day. No, your teeth will rot. But putting the emphasis on weight on a child is not done necessarily directly to them, but it's also how we as adults act around them about certain things, and that's what I was just trying to share, that I think that was a really interesting research paper, and there's other research papers about that, the effects particularly on mothers, so dieting mothers, how that influences the perception of children with their own body as they grow up as well.
And this is, if you remember in last week's live, this is why I said to the sister very directly, look, yeah, you are at home, and in between changing, taking the clothes out of the laundry, I want you to drop down and do 10 knee push-ups. You model for your kids healthy living. You don't need a gym at home. How you choose to live can represent to your kids what is healthy living, healthy choices, a healthy mindset, which attaches to what I said earlier, which is the problem of self-esteem. We keep teaching children about this concept of self-esteem, but essentially, sis, what you have just articulated, or what I'm taking from that, is my worth is attached, i.e., the condition is my weight, my body, my shape. How I feel and think about this is connected to my worth, i.e., when I'm consistent with hitting the scale, the number I want, when I'm on the treadmill, when I'm doing well, I think highly of myself. My kids see that. When I'm not hitting the scale like I want to, I'm not hitting the gym like I want to, I'm not fitting into the dress that I want, I think less of myself. I'm depressed and struggling to get out of bed. My kids see that. It's a thinking problem. And that thinking problem has actions associated, which our kids pick up on.
Yeah,
that's what I'm taking from it.
No, yeah, I see what you mean. I would slightly push back on that, because I do understand the connections you're making, but the slight pushback I would have is kind of interrogating a bit more how worth, when it comes to it. So I personally, I can say this from a privileged position, because I'm not overweight and I haven't, genetics, which usually plays on with it, my family, my siblings, it's not usually an issue, it's never really been an issue for us, but I can understand how some people who fixate on their weight on the scale, even when it has never necessarily been something that has just, it hasn't been as a result of sudden weight gain, that for a long time, since adolescence, since teenage years, they've just been on the chubbier side or slightly overweight, or after we know that there's difficult moments in people's lives can also result in weight gain. So I'm saying that it's not always to blame as something as simple as someone not moving enough or someone not eating enough. There are, for example, when I think about it, when everyone says, "Oh, pandemic weight gain," when during the pandemic, when people were unhappy having to be locked up in home and unable to go out and do things like that, people go through different weight fluctuations in their life, and going from A to B, so the unhappy weight at which they're at, and then B being the weight goal, that is going from A to B is in and of itself difficult. We know that 95% of diets fail because it's not as simple. It's quite difficult without getting to the new sort of nutritional science behind this. But what I'm trying to say is that how do we ensure that people are happy or satisfied with themselves or their lives during that, not always thinking, "Oh, well, eventually when I lose weight I'll be happy," or when I lose, do you see what I mean? That's a difficult,
that's a thinking problem.
Yeah,
that's a thinking problem.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, as someone who's young, look, if you look at kids their parents can give them everything they shouldn't be eating. They'll be walking around here, big belly, all the little rolls of fat, and they just as happy as they want to be. It's not until they get the idea from somewhere, whether it's at home or at school, that there is something wrong with that. And then how, as a young mind perceives and evaluates that, begins the problem. Again, this is why I'm saying it's a thinking problem. And the same thing with diets. Most diets fail because there's a thinking problem. If you talk to most, fitness experts, it's not really so much what you choose to do in terms of the gym. It's the thinking you have that allows you to be consistent with going to the gym to do whatever workout you want to do. It's the thinking you have that allows you to be consistent with whatever diet you choose, right? But again, the thinking problem that allows us to comfort eat, which then breaks the diet. Comfort eat, which then leads us to not want to go to gym and lay on the couch and watch Netflix, not chill, but Netflix instead of going to the gym. Thinking problem. That's the point that I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Sister Zuleika. I think I'm feeling a bit tetchy. I think because it's the unfortunate thing. One of the unfortunate things about the world we live in today is that we think that we know, or we know that we know so much more about everything than we used to, right? That can be a blessing and a curse. Because what I find happens is when we make a case for a standard, there's always, it feels like to me, and I could be wrong, please give me pushback if you guys feel that I'm out of pocket here. But when there's a standard presented, there's often someone making a case for why that standard is unfair, why that standard is harmful, why that standard is prejudiced against this group or that group, right? And that's problematic for me, because if we're going to say that because some people feel this way, or because some people present that way, or because some people, experience this situation in this way, this standard is not something that should remain, then we have no standards, right? And that's what I feel. It's like and human beings tend to take the easy way most of the time, right? If
Yes.
I can get an excuse for why I shouldn't be on the treadmill, or I shouldn't be in the gym, or I should not have 3 cupcakes in a row, I'm going to take that excuse. And where I see it, for example, is whenever we mention about weight gain, what do we hear first and foremost, right? Or losing weight. Let's keep it clear to losing weight. Whenever we talk about losing weight, what are some of the comments that you always get back? Well, what about those with thyroid issues? What about those with an eating disorder, right? And those exceptions are being brought in order to weaken the rule, right? And the majority of people should be living by the rule, right? The majority of people can live by the rule, right? Of course, there are exceptions, but those exceptions should not be brought in order to weaken the rule. So, Sis, for example, you've brought some really interesting research with regards to eating disorders in children. But we have been talking this whole time about sisters being in shape and being healthy and strong and fit. But it kind of muddies the waters now when we start to problematize women looking after themselves and being healthy and being, kind of in control of their diet. And we problematize that by bringing in the idea that, but if your children see you doing that, that may damage them and then will lead for them to have eating disorders later on. I don't know. That's honestly, that's
how it seems.
I feel that it's muddying the waters.
Yes.
It's like, okay, children have what's that got to do with what we're talking about today?
No, but I think I know what you mean. You're probably thinking it was complicated. The point that you and everyone else is trying to say. What I really meant by it was that I think it is an issue. It's an issue that for many people is a sort of black and white issue. There's no nuance in it. Because if we are really talking about Western society, this is sort of our perceptions of weight or weight gain this is kind of we're referring to what it's like to be in Western countries, whether it's the UK, America, or whatever. And what I'm saying is that we know that there's a problem out there, and eating disorders are a massive issue that, as I said, disproportionately affect BAME Muslim young people when it comes to poor outcomes of treatment, and also within social sort of cultural stigma around it as well. I was referring to the specific point of that, because I think it is an interesting question. I think it is an interesting problem. How as adults does something that seems harmless in people, and it seems harmless and very personal, almost like it shouldn't affect anyone, and it doesn't affect anyone. What is the influence and the impact of that on children? You know, but I was just saying that you might think it's irrelevant, but I think it is kind of irrelevant. It is a relevant problem because, as I said, it seems like something a personal critique, a thing that will only affect you, but I think it has wider implications as well. So I guess we can agree to disagree on that. But it's interesting to hear both your views on that.
Sorry, I would like to say something.
Thank you. I think Juwadia wants to jump in. Thanks so much for that.
I would like to jump in, Brother Nasir. 1 minute, please.
We're going to be locking up in a minute.
Actually, hold on. Let's be clear. Okay. Actually, you can wait 1 second. So, what I would say, sis, is that point that you're making is the modeling. And I think that's an important point to remember, right? You model to your kids, right? And if it's going to be healthy or not. Sister, you can join in now.
Okay, thank you, Brother Nasir. But sister, the thing you talk about dieting and mom, let's forget dieting, because dieting is always, you set yourself for failure. Let's say healthy lifestyle. Like you can turn it into a family outing. You can get the children to cook with you healthy foods, have like healthy snacks, make it like a whole family thing rather than just mom eating differently. Everybody eats the same. Everybody is the same. You have healthy meals, you prepare it together as family. You teach when you're preparing, you get the children involved so they know what's going on into their food. So they realize it and they see it, and then that will give them idea. So let's say I'm at home doing a YouTube exercise video. I'm like, guys, come join me. So make it like something fun for them to do, and it builds up. It gives them something to do. So they're not just seeing mom.
I'm so struggling with this concept. I'm really, it's actually making me mad. I'm actually mad. I'm really mad about this because I'm thinking of people that I've known, myself and friends of mine, again, who have active lifestyles and eat in a healthy, balanced way, from a place of love and self-care, right? Yes. And I'm looking at it from their children's perspective, just as you were saying, Sister Juwadia, right? I have a friend of mine who she walks a certain number of miles every week, right? And her children learn to walk with her because they were very young, but she used to take them on these walks in the countryside, and that's just what they do. That's how they live. So for someone to study or anything to say that people making healthy choices is damaging their children psychologically, I can't. No,
that's not what I'm saying, and that's not what I'm saying. And
or maybe damaging them.
That's not what it says.
You know what I mean?
No, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'll briefly say, that's not what I meant, and that's not what the research says. It says that behaviors. So when you have a goal, when you fixate on a goal to lose weight, for a majority of people, that has to you have to sort of take on quite a challenging role, which means you have to restrict what you eat. So health, that's what I'm saying. Living healthy, moving doesn't make somebody a very slim person. It doesn't. You can still be overweight and still be eating healthily and still be moving a lot. It's just the way your body is, the way as I said, from adolescence, you can still just be a chubby or considered an overweight person. But when you are undergoing when you're trying to pursue the goal of major weight loss, it means major restriction of your diet, of what you eat, also being very strict with that, which means it, of course, takes over your daily life. It takes over everything you eat. You have to read the back of your packets. Make sure you're logging your calories into your Fitbit, your steps, your movement, how many calories you're moving. So that of itself, that behavior, is known to be possibly harmful to children if they see that. I wish I could send you the papers because they're very interesting.
I ain't gonna read
that.
They're
super interesting.
I ain't gonna read that.
And it comes from a specific. It's specifically not all children, but children who are predisposed to eating disorders and children who predisposed to disordered eating. That's it. Right. And that small that it seems small, but that small percentage of kids that are predisposed to that is growing because of the times, modern society.
And it's growing. I agree with you, but it's not growing because, you know, their mothers are becoming more health conscious, right? It's social media, the social media and the peers and the environment around them. And I would argue that, you know, for girls, and again, I haven't read the science, so I'm not going to argue with the science, but I'm sure there will be a correlation between the eating disorders and the girls or whoever the children's exposure to certain social media and their peers, because we know when they get to the teenage years, it's the peer group and social media that shapes them, right? It's very little of it is taken from parents, because they're hardly paying attention to us most of the time anyway. But anyway, be that as it may, it's something to pay attention to and be aware of, in the sense that we sisters, and I feel that this is something that we can benefit from, if you are going to take a decision to go on a health journey, whether it's weight loss, whether it's becoming fit, becoming strong, whatever the case may be aware, as Brother Nasir was saying, of your thinking about it, your intention with it, and how you are modeling it, because your children will pick up on that, right? So if you're like eating healthily, but you can't stand it, right? And they can see that you hate the fact that you're doing this, right? And it's that I have to energy. For sure, they're going to make unhealthy associations between what you're doing and them. Supernova has ordered doner and chips. His doner and chips is here. He says good night to everybody. So that was helpful. But you know, but again, going back to the personal accountability, for sure, we certainly on this channel, this is a big deal for us, is us being empowered to take responsibility for ourselves, to be accountable for our own actions, for our attitudes, for our thinking, so that we can show up differently, so that we can make better choices. And you know, mashallah, the fact that, sis, you mentioned that this is not your problem. You've not had, you know, struggles with weight, etc. And I find it kind of ironic, because I notice that a lot is people who don't have the issue, right, that we're talking about. You see what I was saying about how there is like a rule, and then people want to give pushback against the rule, the standard, and say, yes, but it doesn't apply to everyone. What about these people? What about those people? I find that the people who are pushing for an exception to the rule or to bend the rule, they don't even need to break the rule. Like, they're not the ones with thyroid issues. They're not the ones with eating disorders. They're speaking on behalf of, in their mind, those with thyroid issues and those with eating disorders, but using someone else's example in order to make the rule something that is not applicable. And then, like I said, I feel it just muddies the waters, right? It just muddies the waters. But anyway, that's my personal opinion, and everybody is free to disagree, mashallah. But sisters, I think we have to wrap it up. Thank you so much. JazakAllahu khairan for popping on, for sharing that. Whew, subhanAllah.
So did we get an answer? Did we get an answer to what is the way for a husband to respond?
Be honest.
To encourage the wife?
Sorry, sis, go ahead.
Be honest up front.
No, sis. No. That was not the final answer.
No, the final answer was he had to say it.
Okay. So no hinting.
No hinting, no. Say it. Tell me.
So Sister Juwaria said, be upfront and honest.
Yeah,
in the chat and in the comments, we had people saying it's better if he sends her to the spa, sends her to the salon, says he'll look after the kids, sends her off to the gym, buys her some new clothes, if I remember, buy her some makeup. Okay, these were some of the suggestions, mashallah. But jazakAllahu khairan, says it was so fun having you. You must come again, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Oh, so sorry. I cut the sister off. Manish. So sorry about that.
My only concern with that, although I think there was some good points brought up, my only concern with that is a wife can understandably interpret that a different way, right? So he got me a spa day, and he said he's gonna watch the kids while I go to the spa. That can be interpreted as he realizes how much I work at the home and with the kids, and I need a break, right? That could be how
that was some of the wording as well. Like you look like you need a break. You know, you've been doing so much for the family. Go and take care of yourself. So that was also a suggestion.
But that's different than saying, I love you, but you need to lose some weight. Right?
Yeah.
Those are two separate things. She may not make the connection that he wants to give me a spa day because he wants me also to walk a few laps around the mall before I go into the spa. Or that I need to do that.
Yeah. Well, Bibi and her husband are brutally honest. She asks him how she looks and she expects him to be honest. And she says, my husband and I do health and body checks together with each other all the time. We are each other's mirrors. Okay. Brother Talha says, say it up front to her, but it's not for his ego, but for the pleasure of Allah, for the pleasure of God. Exactly. Just be upfront and tell her the truth, but politely. And Brother Yusuf says, this is the reason why the white lie is allowed in Islam. Brothers, you don't have to be honest all the time. Then Tranquility says, us women cannot demand that men communicate like women. That's going too far. Rahmah and hikmah, but be honest. And Bibi says, as a woman, we need to understand that our men are visual creatures. Oh, I love it. Alhamdulillah, this is great. Okay.
Yeah.
I
think we need to come back though, maybe next week, and we need to really revisit this polygyny conversation because I think we didn't finish it. We didn't even start. Yeah, went on a different needed tangent, but I think it's an important conversation for us to have because again, I think. I had a conversation with some young brothers this week, and they are of the mindset that one wife is better than more. And my pushback to them was, within the Muslim community, we can't afford to have that mindset.
Ooh. Okay. Let's pause it right there because that can be our segue into next week. Can we afford monogamy in the Muslim community? Is it still an option? Should it be an option? Should polygamy be the default? Let's see. Kula the Tyrant wants delusional single women to stop complaining about polygamy. And he's been saying that for the whole week. So he's been commenting that all week. So I had to put that there, inshallah. But yes, guys. So next Thursday, Candid Conversations. Let's talk about polygyny, guys. All right.
I like that questioning, though. I think that should be the question for our show next week. Yeah, right? Cool. Everybody send it out to your friends, chime in. Can we as a ummah afford monogamy?
I'm going to put a poll up, guys, on the channel to say, to ask all the unmarried sisters in my community, right? Y'all have to answer. Okay, this is going to be a question for all the unmarried sisters in the community, and you need to answer these questions about polygamy, right? And so look out for the post in my community tab. We want to take a poll from you guys and see what your thoughts are, inshallah. I've got some questions that are brewing, so I'm going to put those out bi'idhnillah because there's lots of opinions on this issue. So we're definitely going to unpack it. We'll do a call in as well. Let's have some brothers on next week as well, like we did the week before. And let's turn it up, mashallah. Paria says, no, this is a sister, I think. Say it straight up. No salon, no go to the spa while I take care of the kids. Some of us won't get the connection. And if you're slow like me, you'll think he's just being extra nice.
Exactly. See, that's what I know.
Subhanallah. Okay, so khalas, we did some good work today, guys, and I think we had a good time about it as well. So with that, I think we're going to bid you good night, inshallah. We'll see you next week, bi'idhnillah. Next Thursday, Candid Conversations, same bat time, same bat channel. And don't forget to join for Wednesday's live stream. We are going to be talking about porn and Muslim women, dealing with the addicts and with the addictions. Okay, so don't miss that. Be there or be square, as I like to say, and make sure that you tell all your friends about this stream. If you have not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Make sure you subscribe. We're on our way to 50,000 subscribers. If we could get there by the end of the year, I would be absolutely over the moon, inshallah. Like the video, make sure you leave a comment because it helps with the algorithm, and make sure you follow brother Nasir al-Amin on his channel. Now, brother Nasir, let's do a temperature check, okay? How many subscribers do you have right now? Do you know? Because we need to see that number going up.
I don't. I think it's in the 200s. I think.
I am going to check now.
I think it's 200 something.
If you guys have already subscribed to brother Nasir, can you please put subscribed in the chat? Oh, 319.
319.
So we want to get it to 500. All right. So that's the next goal, guys. 500. If you've already subscribed to brother Nasir, then please put subscribed in the chat. Let me quickly grab the link so that I can put it in the chat now if you haven't subscribed, because there's content on there that he puts on there that is not here. So you'll want to make sure that you catch that, inshallah, especially if you like his straight talking style and the uncomfortables. Tell them, can you tell the viewers what they can expect on your channel, inshallah? Because I know that it's still evolving and growing, and inshallah it's going to blow up. But what should they expect on your channel?
Yeah, so expect some of the uncomfortable truths that I share here, but also my training is in counseling and social work. And my work that I do is with Muslim brothers and sisters in coaching in terms of their emotional regulation and their marriages. So that's what I do. And that's the work that I share online on IG under my name, Nasir al-Amin, as well as on YouTube. The IG has more of my content, but I'm gradually putting that on YouTube as well. So that's what you'll find. You'll find perspectives from the modality that I use, CBT, and how that relates to the brothers and sisters that I work with. And sisters, I would say that you will find content that is geared towards you, because the majority of my client base are Muslim women. So you will find information that's relative to you.
Thank you very much. And Brother Yusuf, jazakAllahu khair. Guys, there were no super chats today. I'm sad. And azalena. No super chats, no super thanks, no nothing. Is that what we're doing now? Yeah, we come out here, look after you guys for 3.5 hours. Y'all can't even buy us a coffee. Really? Is that how we're doing? Okay. All right. I'm going to remember that. Okay. I am going to remember that. And next time, if you guys want me to do any accents, or you want me to throw down any of that London talk, I'm only going to do it when there's a super chat or a super thanks involved. How's that? Yes.
So one thing, I'm glad that you mentioned here the buy me a coffee for you and I appreciate that. But just for clarity, since we're at the end of the show, what is nose out of joint? What is this? You said this. Is this a UK thing?
It's a UK thing, yes. It's a UK thing, and it just means like being upset by something, being put out. Put out meaning put off. No, put out is being annoyed. Your nose out of joint is annoyed, offended, that kind of thing, that kind of energy.
Okay.
Who said
learn something new? You said it. You were when we were talking. Yeah, no. Earlier. I made note of it because I never heard it before. Nose out of joint. Yeah.
Nose out of joint is annoyed. All right, guys. We will, inshallah, next week have a very special announcement for you guys as well, won't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys got to tune in. There's a lot going on next week.
Yes, definitely. We'll see you guys, bi'idhnillah. And Priya says, is our presence not enough? Girl. You know that we love you and we appreciate all of you. And subhanAllah, I say this every week, but it's worth saying again. This is the best live chat on YouTube. Sorry to say, right? I have been on live streams in the Muslim community. Put it in the chat, in the comments, guys, if you agree that this is the best live chat, like the best chat in live stream on the YouTube for the Muslims at the moment. I'm sorry, I've been on other people's live streams. I know how crazy the chat can get. I know how off topic the chat can be. I know how toxic the chat can be sometimes. I know how people can start fighting and getting crazy in the chat, not paying any attention to what's actually happening on the screen. Our live stream chats are beautiful on this channel. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, and it is a testimony to you guys and your sincerity and your intentions and the caliber of people that come to this stream. So I appreciate you guys. We don't need moderators. We don't need people going crazy and like banning people and everything. It's beautiful. And that's because of you guys. So hats off to you. That's why we will do it. We will continue to do it for free. But if you want the accents, you have to pray for that. Okay, that's it. Oh, mashallah. Thank you, Sister Seaman, for the 200 KES super chat. JazakAllahu khairan. So what's the accent? Do I have to do an accent now? What's it gonna be? You can request anything and I'll try my best. Yes, it's good when we can be productive and share best practices. Sister Seaman, you can ask for the closing address in the accent that you want. Inshallah, I will do that for you and I will try my best. So please, Sister Seaman, since you gave the super chat, you get to say what accent I use to close off the show. Please just let me know in the chat so we can close off the show, inshallah. And if Sister Seaman doesn't want to give it, Layla says Nigerian. So Seaman, if you want me to do something other than Nigerian, you need to speak now or forever hold your peace, okay? Counting down in 5, 4.
I didn't know about this accent thing that you do.
3, 2, 1. Oh, so we're ending it now. So thank you so much. You have all been so good. We have had the most wonderful time. Thank you, Han. We will see you next weekend. Don't miss it. We are going to be here next Wednesday and next Thursday. So we'll see you there at 9 o'clock UK time. For now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum.